Chapter 4:18. Nicole's value had been verified in advance. Being able to kill a monster that Han Dong had never seen before was enough to prove everything. Nicole's true strength was probably even more terrifying. Increasing the intimacy between the two as much as possible would definitely be of great help to this fog incident. Han Dong was also ready to fully take over the hidden incident. At that time, the plot would also be pushed forward quickly. If this extremely risky fate event ended early, it would be a good thing in itself. In addition, Han Dong was also a little interested in this Miss Nicole. Of course, it was not interest on the level of a man and a woman, but he was interested in Nicole's own setting and existence. Perhaps he could continue to use her in the future. Splash! Splash! A clear mountain spring that was often seen in movies was hidden in the mountains. Not only could such clear water be drunk directly, but it also provided rich minerals. Of course, it was also a good choice to take a bath. The moment she saw the mountain spring, Nicole smiled, immediately took off the black robe wrapped around her body, and jumped into it. When she came into contact with such clear mountain spring water, some of the special tissues that Nicole had hidden in her body automatically showed themselves. Some pink and fat octopus tentacles overflowed from her skin. During the washing process, the sand on the land would fall off from the suckers and be discharged. Colorful shellfish also flipped out of her body one after another, blocking some parts. A pair of small fleshy wings also grew out from her back. Han Dong had already seen this feature of wings in the parking lot. However, at that time, it was a pair of giant wings that quickly carried Nicole away from the parking lot area. As Nicole's sea blue long hair came into contact with the mountain spring, the transparent spring water was faintly dyed light blue. A weak energy contained in the mountain spring could be sensed by Nicole to any area where the mountain spring was located. Due to her humanoid body and beautiful appearance, these 2 points did not change. Even if some strange marine life characteristics grew on her body, overall, it did not exceed the scope of human aesthetics. Of course, ordinary people did not have to think too much about it. A seemingly cute pink tentacle could instantly squeeze a human body dry. See no evil. Han Dong sat on a rock on the side of the mountain spring and waited quietly, thinking about how to achieve the real ending. At this moment, the bag of bad omens on his waist suddenly shook. Why does it have to be this time? With Miss Nicole here, I'll have a super powerful helper. However, there was a 60% chance of triggering moment of despair. Plus, we were in a completely unknown area deep in the mountains. Since the church at the top of the mountain has performed a summoning ritual to cover the area with fog, the danger inside the mountain is higher than in the town. Let's deal with it seriously. Han Dong was prepared to use one bad omen point. He reached out to take the card. Han Dong pulled out a dark red card that was completely different from the one before. Rather than calling it a card, it was more like a kind of hard skin with a fishy smell. The moment of despair has arrived. Forcefully draw 2 bad omen cards. At the same time. Please complete the draw within 30 seconds. Miss Nicole, please hurry to the shore, we might be in trouble. After Han Dong shouted, he immediately drew a card. The first card was imprinted with 2 swirling soul imprints. The second card was imprinted with 4 round worms. The bad omen cards I drew in the supermarket in the town were all octopus heads. Now that I'm leaving the town, the bad omen cards I drew have other attributes? Bad omen card, Rogue Fear. Source: when the fog first descended, residents living at the edge of the town or in the surrounding villages and villages. Because they knew that the army was stationed at the top of the mountain, they tried to run up the mountain to seek help, but they got lost in the mountains due to various circumstances. Until now, they still seemed to be wandering, as if they were looking for a direction to leave, and as if they were looking for a scapegoat. Characteristics: large number, rogue domain. Requirements: leave the rogue's range of activity. The current area has changed. You need to find the exit to leave. Bad Omen Card Big Boss Fear Source. Located in the Rocky Mountain outside Rhinetown, there are many cave structures. The descent of the fog caused a large number of wild creatures living in the mountains to hide in the caves out of fear. In the end, all of them died inside. Tens of thousands of corpses attracted a big boss worm. Now, the entire mountain cave has become a big boss habitat. Characteristics: large, ultra-rapid regeneration, madness. Requirements: appease the enraged big boss or kill it completely. 2 different bad omens working together will produce additional effects. Currently, because of the rogue factor, Nicole and I are completely trapped here, and we have to face 2 threats at the same time. The so-called exit should be difficult to find when we are distracted. In other words, we have to deal with the bad omen head-on. There is no option of escape. In the blink of an eye, Han Dong's vision had already captured many rogues, slowly walking out, crawling out, and floating out of the forest. Because they had been trapped in the mountains for a long time, they no longer trusted their eyes and were afraid of seeing terrifying monsters, so they took the initiative to remove their eyeballs. Due to the influence of the deep mountains and the fog, the empty eye sockets were filled with a kind of thread-like plant. Looking into the eye sockets of such plants would cause a strong sense of discomfort in the consciousness. Just like the message given by the bad omen card, there were countless such rogues. The little magic I could see that there were still rogues walking out of the fog. Some of the fat individuals seemed to have the ability to self-destruct. But what Han Dong cared about the most was the big boss worm entrenched in the mountains. At this moment, a cold and slippery tentacle suddenly wrapped around Han Dong's waist and abdomen. Plop! It directly dragged Han Dong to the bottom of the pool. Han Dong said that he did not break free because it was Nicole who dragged him. The center of the pool was more than 5 meters deep, enough for 2 people to hide at the bottom. Because of the tentacle, Han Dong and Nicole were almost stuck together. It seemed that this kind of contact could not be blocked by some shells. A unique sound channel structure allowed Nicole to speak in the water. Let's deal with the big boss first. Even if the ritual portal is opened, this kind of big boss that doesn't like to move is too big and difficult to summon. The big boss is a direct descendant, mixed with a little moose blood. If we don't deal with it directly, we may be in danger. Okay. Han Dong couldn't speak underwater, so he could only spit out 2 bubbles and respond with a nod. For a time, the pink tentacles growing on Nicole's body suddenly hardened. Similar to the effect of a drilling machine, it directly drilled a passage to the inside of the mountain at the bottom of the pool. This kind of pile driver effect made Han Dong uncomfortable. Chapter 419. Through Nicole's super drilling machine, a path was directly opened up to the inside of the mountain. The pink tentacles could be soft or hard. In its hardest state, it also had the ability to rotate and vibrate, easily penetrating the thick rock layers of the mountain. Nicole did not slow down in the process of drilling the mountain, and it hardly consumed any physical energy. If I didn't throw a 6 at the beginning and fought with Nicole head-on, the whole car would have died, and I might have been in danger. The definition of the Jinx movie itself and Nicole's position. This octopus girl's background may be bigger than I thought. If the friendly relationship can rise to a certain level in the future, I can try to ask Nicole the real origin of my little sister. If I really reach the true self ending, I don't know if Nicole still exists. While Han Dong was thinking, he followed Nicole to the inside of the mountain. In front of him was a worm body that occupied more than 80% of the space inside the mountain. Compared to the worms Han Dong saw on the streets of the town, the general shape here was more than 10 times larger. The surface of the round fat body was covered with strange patterns. There were also many wild animal limbs protruding from the surface. Just as Han Dong was amazed by its huge size and perhaps difficult to kill, Nicole was not surprised. Nicole, on the other hand, was not surprised at all. After trying to speak on the ground many times, her speech had become much clearer. It's just an eliminated metamorphosis general shape. It grows by devouring the low-level animals in this world. The worm's attributes are very low. The real general shape is more than 10 times larger. According to Nicole's description, this should be the worst worm general shape she had ever seen. How can this thing be killed? With Nicole, the encyclopedia, next to him, Han Dong gave up the idea of comforting the worm. The so-called huge body of the so-called mummy's blood, Han Dong estimated that it could provide him with enough mythical energy to deal with the mysterious church at the top of the mountain. Nicole explained patiently. The real core of the general shape is called the worm's original body. The original body creates a shell by devouring other life forms infinitely. Generally speaking, it is a movable shell used by the worm's original body to protect itself and eat quickly. After digesting and absorbing the life forms it devours, the essence will be absorbed into the original body. The location of the original body is not fixed. It swims and hides in the general upstream area. There is a high probability that it will stay in the brain area. Understood. I'm the best at finding things. Even though some of the patterns on the surface of the worm acted like a barrier, the little magic I was still able to penetrate it. In the space inside the worm's body, there were not only some body cavity structures, but also a large number of wild animals that had been devoured. These dead wild animals lived in the big body, in the form of zombie beasts, attacking any individual that invaded its body. My tentacles have a strong irritating property. Tearing apart most of the body will completely disturb it. Do you have any ideas? Nicole seemed to like to do more of everything herself. When she asked Han Dong for help, she was a little embarrassed and blushed. That's easy. Smack! A huge and terrifying eye quickly formed on Han Dong's right arm. The gigantic G-arm dragged the fire axe. He leaped into the air. With a swing of his axe, he cut a 3-meter-long opening in the worm's body. The two of them quickly stepped into the opening. Inside the red body cavity, a large number of zombies and beasts that had been homogenized by the worm had already regarded the two of them as intruders. Han Dong reached out and blocked Nicole behind him. Let me take care of these beasts. The G-virus was really useful. The attack, defense, and regenerative abilities of pure physical characteristics were not restricted in the special event of the mist. Basically, it could deal with any situation. At the same time, Han Dong's left arm was also casting yellow sand magic. The axe chopped and the yellow sand pierced. Han Dong fought his way out while Nicole followed behind him without making any movement. Nicole was only a little surprised at Han Dong's transformation through the G-virus at first, but she did not show any other expression afterward. Miss Nicole, even if it's an Asian big body, it shouldn't be so easy to deal with, right? There should be more dangerous areas later, right? Although there were countless zombies and beasts in the body cavity, the process was not very dangerous. However, the entire process was not dangerous. The demonic eye could see through all the movements of the beast. Every strike of the axe could kill at least one beast. You just need to bring me to the original body. Let me deal with the rest. Okay. They moved forward slowly along the worm's body. Han Dong killed all the beasts along the way by himself. There were thousands of them. This high-intensity training made Han Dong's body more proficient in controlling the G-virus. It could even be said that he had evolved. There was one time when Han Dong was surrounded by many beasts, and he could not free himself to attack. His high-speed brain recalled the time when he transformed into a G-mad dog. His body grew a lot of spikes due to uncontrollable growth. If these spikes could be used reasonably, they would be a great killing weapon. For a moment, Han Dong deliberately relaxed his control of the G-virus. Swish, the surface of his body was densely packed with hard spikes. The beasts that pounced on him were instantly pierced through. The situation of being surrounded was never resolved. This was the first time Han Dong used spikes. In the subsequent slashes, Han Dong also slowly understood the problem of refinement mutation. The G-virus's effect on cells was mainly on the two levels of division and protein production. Both situations could increase the strength of the right arm. However, the division was particularly obvious. As a result, the right arm would become abnormally large, which would affect Han Dong's movements and lead to a decrease in agility. Han Dong tried to induce the G-virus to stimulate the cells to produce special proteins and increase the efficiency of each cell. He controlled the size of the right arm but could provide the same strength and regeneration efficiency. Slowly, the giant right arm that was originally dragging on the ground shrunk by about half. Although it was still larger than a normal arm, the overall agility and portability were improved. His attack speed had a qualitative improvement, and the efficiency of killing beasts had greatly increased. The flexible use of the G-virus also made Han Dong more convinced of the changes in his right arm in the future. By then, Han Dong's close combat level might be able to catch up with the Crusader. At the same time. In this way, with Han Dong's one-sided effort, he finally arrived at the worm's head area. Han Dong naturally looked a little tired and panted heavily. Recalling what Nicole said about the real head area, which was more than 10 times larger, the image of a giant worm entrenched in mountains and rivers appeared in Han Dong's mind. Without knowing the general characteristics of the worm, it was impossible for him to fight against such a giant worm alone. The head area, the structure of the body cavity had completely changed, and the surrounding red flesh had a tentacle-like structure. The beasts no longer existed. When he stepped into the brain area, a strong sense of nausea and discomfort swept through Han Dong's body. The hallucination made Han Dong see the pores all over his body enlarged, and fat worms drilled in and out of the surface of his body. At this time, Miss Nicole tilted her head again and kissed Han Dong without warning. A slender tongue drilled into Han Dong's cerebral area from his mouth. The water droplets from the deep sea overflowed from the tip of the tongue and turned into a cool membrane that wrapped around Han Dong's brain, eliminating the hallucination and providing mental protection. Chapter 420. The brain region constructed by the worm's original body is extremely confusing. As for its original body, it is hidden in a corner here. Leave the rest to me. Although I was forcibly summoned to your world by those unruly believers. But after absorbing your special essence, I can be considered to have gotten rid of the weak state. It was actually quite good that Nicole was willing to solve this matter alone. However, Han Dong had his own unique needs. Can I go with you? If possible, I want to absorb the energy of the worm's original body so that I can assist you in attacking the mysterious cult at the top of the mountain. Nicole replied calmly, That's right. The essence of that messenger flows in your body. You can indeed absorb any kind of energy. Okay, you can come with me. The Poseidon's protection I provide can hardly exert 100% of its effect in the opponent's domain. The worm's original body is very confusing. It can change its appearance according to the mental weakness of the invading individual. You must not be confused. Okay. This time, Nicole took the initiative to hold Han Dong's hand as they moved towards the general area of the brain. Thanks to Nicole's help, no matter what kind of mental attack the brain region produced, Han Dong was completely unaffected. Little magic I also tried to see through the blurry illusions as much as possible during this process to capture the original body hidden in the brain region. Nicole, about 46 meters ahead, in the 2:00 direction, there might be something hidden in the wall. Your eyes are so special, Nicole muttered. Following Han Dong's instructions, she also noticed that something was wrong. Whoosh! Immediately, several pink and hardened octopus tentacles drilled out of Nicole's palm. They accurately pierced through the wall that Han Dong had pointed out. They wrapped around a strange insect body. Nicholas, what are you doing? A voice belonging to Mr. Black and White came from the front. Obviously, because the worm's original body read the important information in Han Dong's brain, it fabricated the voice of a person who had an extremely important influence on Han Dong in an attempt to confuse Han Dong. However, due to the effect of Little Magic Eye, the visual illusion did not materialize normally. The so-called worm protozoa was a strange worm that was transparent and covered with nerve threads. Mr. Black and White's voice was created through neural threads that were good at mimicking. It was fine if he didn't imitate. Mr. Black and White held a very high place in Han Dong's heart. Han Dong, who had spent most of his life in school, valued the relationship between teachers and students very much. Not to mention, Mr. Black and White had taken good care of Han Dong. Han Dong would never allow anyone to offend his mentor. Under the situation where Nicole had restrained and lured the target, Han Dong stepped forward decisively and grabbed the worm's body. Of course, at this time, his original body had also entered a defensive state. The densely packed nerve threads retracted inwards, forming an impenetrable protective layer. At the same time, the general body began to shake violently, trying to shake Han Dong and the other out of its body. Weakness lock, Little Magic Eye immediately captured the weakest part of the nerve defense. Han Dong directly picked up the axe and slashed wildly. Due to the uniqueness of the movie, The Mist, the axe that originated from the movie could cause great damage to the monster. It forcefully split open the nerve defense layer on the surface of the worm protozoa. Die. Perfect connection. The spotted tentacle in Han Dong's palm quickly drilled in and forcibly absorbed the inner core of the worm protozoa. Mythical energy plus 10 for a moment, the giant worm protozoa that crowded the mountain lost its vitality, shriveled and shrunk. Nicole stared at Han Dong's tentacle technique. She tilted her head slightly and showed a very puzzled expression. In her memory, she had never seen such spotted tentacles. Bad Omen, overall completed, Bad Omen points plus 3, assisted by others, 1 Bad Omen point reward deducted. There's such a rule in single-player mode? However, Nicole's existence has indeed saved me a lot of trouble. Only 1 point is deducted, which is reasonable. Whoosh! The axe cut open the scalp again. Han Dong and Nicole landed steadily on the ground. Due to the death of the worm protozoa, the skin of the giant worm protozoa kept shrinking. In the end, it turned into a piece of white paper that Han Dong was familiar with. The white paper that would appear after every Bad Omen event. Moreover, Han Dong could be sure that only he could see the paper. Nicole only saw a shriveled and worthless worm protozoa's skin. This further confirmed Han Dong's inference about the real ending. It was 1 step closer to the true self ending. Obtained original manuscript 4. Han Dong carefully put away the original manuscript. At this moment, Nicole suddenly approached him. Because Han Dong had not yet deactivated his combat state, the little magic eye between his eyebrows was still open. What are you doing? Han Dong was a little helpless. Han Dong did not understand or expect some of the sudden actions of this deep-sea girl. Mia, who used to be clingy, would ask for Han Dong's opinion when she touched him. But Nicole did not ask at all, and there was no warning in advance. She suddenly did it. Whether or not Nicole did it unintentionally, the little magic eye was too important, and Han Dong could not let others touch it. It's an ocular ability that I learned from a copy of the Book of Necromancy. Book of Necromancy? The word seemed to touch on Nicole's deep memories that were sealed away. The stabbing pain made Nicole show a very uncomfortable expression, but in the end she could not remember anything. It's so strange. It's so familiar, but why can't I remember? No, I can't think about it. Otherwise, I might die. I have to return to the sea first. Han Dong silently watched this scene. Next, thanks to the help of Nicole, this deep-sea girl who knew everything, the subsequent handling of the Nightmare Omen rogue also became simple. Nicole directly explained the origin of the rogue. It was an individual formed by the influence of the vine spirit entrenched in the mountains. The humans lost in the mountains could not get out no matter how hard they tried, and gradually lost themselves, and their consciousness was occupied by the vine spirit. This kind of vine spirit could flexibly transfer and attach to all rogues. However, the transfer had a cooldown time. In the end, Han Dong and Nicole split up and restrained vine spirit in a body so that it could not immediately transfer. Just as Nicole was about to kill vine spirit. Wait, lend me this thing. Chapter 421. What Han Dong meant by using it for a while was a sacrificial offering. Stage 2. Exploring the mist. The Yellow Temple had completely escaped from the underground area of the supermarket and existed in Han Dong's mind in the form of a moving space. The sacrifice to the Yellow Temple would be achieved through the tentacles. It looked no different from the tentacles, absorbing the Yellow Temple. Even Nicole couldn't see any clues. Sacrificing the vine spirit to upgrade a basic card, ally card, Crowman. Due to the uniqueness of the Mist event and the fact that Han Dong wanted to achieve a special ending. Therefore, Han Dong no longer thought about the special training for Togu and Chun-Li in the solo mode. He focused on achieving the special ending. The Dozier Crow that could form a bond with Han Dong was the best support option after the Magic Eye. The basic card had the effect of permanent removal. As long as Han Dong spent 5 bad omen points, the Dozier Crow would be able to obtain permanent mobility. Just nice. After the double bad omen ended, although some of the bad omen points were deducted, Han Dong was left with 5 bad omen points. Nicole is basically a walking dictionary of the mist that can fight, defend, and support. The double bad omen triggered this time was much easier for me. Although some of the bad omen points were deducted, it was not a loss at all. Speaking of which, because of Nicole, the difficulty of the bad omen has been reduced. I hope the system won't make any adaptive countermeasures. This way, I can end this fate event relatively safely and quickly. Just as Han Dong was thinking about this, the system notification sounded. The system has detected that the solo participant has cooperated with a deep character. The relevant parameters are being corrected. After the correction, the overall difficulty of the mist will be increased. Han Dong wanted to slap himself, but thinking about it carefully, if there was a loophole in the Destiny realm, Mr. Black and White or some of the top figures in the Sacred City would have used it to gain power. In fact, there was no loophole. Even the slightest imbalance would be immediately fixed by the Destiny system. I'm lucky enough to get through the moment of despair. I'm not too far away from the real ending. I'll be there after a while. After getting into the car, he would try to get to know Nicole better. For the rest of the plot, we'll have to deal with it as a 2-player mode. Back to the school bus. Han Dong spent 5 bad omen points. After leveling up, the Crowman card turned into black feathers and formed a cute crow on Han Dong's shoulder. The crow immediately attracted Nicole's attention. What a strange life form! It's somewhat similar to the life forms on our side, but it's not completely. Staring at the black crow on Han Dong's shoulder, Nicole actually stuck out her tongue again, wanting to lick the crow to obtain its detailed attribute. Ga. This action frightened the many Zay crows, causing them to continuously cry out and fly around Han Dong. The dangerous aura emitted from Nicole's body made the Dozu crow terrified. Nicole, this crow is very timid. I'll tell you more about it later. Oh, you have to tell me. Nicole seemed to be very curious about all new things, and once she knew something, she would firmly remember it in her heart. Walking back to the school bus that was parked on the mountain road, Nicole often stared at the crow on Han Dong's shoulder with her eyes wide open. This caused the many Zay crow to have the feeling that this woman wanted to eat it. Do I have to maintain the state of a normal crow to bring people? In this state, I basically have no defensive abilities, and I'll be eaten if I'm not careful. No one will eat you. Nicole is just curious about you. Without my permission, you can't arbitrarily transform into a crowman, or else you'll scare the ordinary townspeople on the bus. Ga. Due to the school bus being attacked by the Fog Eyes earlier, and Nicole instantly destroying all the Fog Eyes monsters surrounding the school bus, this caused the townspeople on the bus to have a certain favorable impression of this person of another race. At least they no longer held any hostility towards her. We encountered a lot of trouble while fetching water, but it's been successfully resolved. Let's continue on our way. Okay. Not sure if it was just Han Dong's imagination. Due to Nicole's intervention, the overall difficulty of the mist had increased. The townspeople's physical strength seemed to have also increased to a certain extent. They still needed to drive for at least half an hour to reach the top of the mountain. Han Dong and Nicole sat in the last row and whispered to each other. Nicole, we'll definitely encounter unexpected dangers when we head to the Order's territory later. Can we exchange information about our abilities and understand each other more thoroughly so that it'll be easier for us to cooperate in the future? Sure, Nicole thought that Han Dong's suggestion was acceptable. However, the method of information exchange was, as Nicole nodded in agreement, she instantly pressed her face against Han Dong's and had intimate contact with him again. Everyone on the bus stared at the intimate scene without any concealment and was stunned again. However, the townspeople still admired Han Dong's foul mouth. Although Nicole had a fairy-like appearance, everyone knew that she was a terrifying anomaly in nature, a deep-sea monster that could grow a large number of octopus tentacles. Ordinary people would break out in a cold sweat if they were to get close to Nicole, let alone touch her. From this point of view, Han Dong looked like a brave man. As mentioned before, contact between different races couldn't be considered intimate. Currently, Nicole was only carrying out a secret exchange of information. Through her mouth, she extended a nerve tentacle into Han Dong's skull and directly exchanged information. What was a little surprising was, combined with the passive analysis ability of the faceless skull, a diagram of Nicole's abilities was formed in Han Dong's mind. Analysis completed. Nicole Little Claw containment method. Not yet contained because the two aren't particularly close and the target's level is relatively high. It's recommended to forcibly contain her. Main attribute: Deep 1, Deep Ones. Category: Octopus, Royal Claw, extremely rare octopus deep ones, mixed with the blood of the deep-sea royal clan, but due to the influence of high level, they've been completely disconnected from the royal clan. Combat rating: See evolution path? Can be checked after containment. Ability system: 1. Deep-sea royal clan, greatly increases the speed of advancement, experience points doubled. 2. Octopus. Has 8 lives, can release octopus tentacles with suction cups. The number of tentacles, sensitivity, strength, corrosiveness, etc. are all related to the host's level. 3. A strong hydrophilia, immune to water attribute magic. In a water environment, comprehensive attributes are increased, and has super regenerative abilities. 4. Deep sea studies, able to cast deep-sea unique, related spells. Please check the scientific name and information of the spell after receiving it. Chapter 422. Relatively. Of course, Nicole also received some information about Han Dong's abilities, including Magic Eye, Tentacles, G-Virus, and Black Magic, and information about this Dozier Crow. It was a very simple exchange of information between the two, but in the eyes of outsiders, it was purely intimacy. Moreover, because Han Dong was seriously reviewing Nicole's illustration handbook, he completely forgot that he was in intimate contact with this octopus girl. As a result, the information exchange process between the two lasted for more than 10 minutes. A sense of admiration arose spontaneously, and some of the townspeople could not help but give Han Dong a thumbs up. Initiating an information exchange, affinity with event character and Nicole Little Claw has increased. Relationship has changed from neutral to friendly. Han Dong smiled faintly when he heard the news. In this way, being forced to kiss 3 times in a row was not a loss at all. Nicole's special information in the illustration handbook made Han Dong completely tempted. Even if Mr. Aha from Ghost Stories was also special, Han Dong was more willing to control octopus girls like Nicole who were not very smart. Moreover, Nicole's characteristics in certain aspects made Han Dong very interested. The strange deep-sea magic also suited her identity as an auxiliary healer. However, whether she could develop into a keeper or not depended on the subsequent changes in their relationship. Crowmen. I seem to have heard of this race somewhere, but I can't remember where. After collecting the information, Nicole no longer looked at the dozier crow as if she wanted to eat it. Nicole's black eyes shone with a strange luster. She was quite satisfied with this kind of information exchange. My information must not be leaked. Only you can know. Han Dong immediately made an OK gesture. Miss Nicole, do you want to talk about the church, officially? Next was the important part of the discussion. Due to the noise of the car and the fact that the townspeople were afraid of Nicole, they tried to stay away from the backseat area. As long as they lowered their voices, they would not be heard by others. Han Dong naturally could not let the townspeople know about the church in advance. The lie of the border and the lie of escaping the fog had been branded in the hearts of the townspeople. And Han Dong's real purpose was not to escape the fog. Instead, it pointed straight to the depths of the fog. First of all, he had to head to the source of the fog in his current area, the mountaintop. That was an important step in venturing deeper into the fog. Once the townspeople knew about this, it would immediately cause a huge controversy. Another thing to note was that Han Dong had never thought of going down the path of a savior. The reason he brought the townsfolk along was purely for insurance. If the real ending couldn't be achieved due to some mistake, he would immediately make up for the savior ending. At the same time, the townsfolk could be considered a very good group of tools. Nicole whispered into Han Dong's ear and began to explain the order. This group of churches has a deep understanding of the void. They seem to be unruly and open doors at will, but they can absorb all kinds of energy through other means. The church located at the peak of this mountain was a huge organization with hundreds of members. Not only did he absorb the energy from the deep sea, but he also absorbed the energy from the deep sea. Even the energy of the 2 major races, the Shagai insectoids and the specters, were absorbed together and injected into the body of a certain bishop through a very strange sacrificial ritual. It was also the first time I saw humans become so powerful. They also summoned life forms of different races directly to a sealed area and slaughtered them. The only surviving void life form was fused with the members of the church. I was seen by the bishop's eyes and used up a large amount of essence that I had stored to escape from the mountain. Oh? Sir Bishop, are there any other members of the church who had undergone fusion? Han Dong fell into deep thought. The difficulty of the next event might be more difficult than expected. Nicole continued to talk about the subsequent events, including her encounter with Han Dong. Later, I met you by chance outside the town's supermarket. Because I could smell a similar dangerous scent from you, I mistook you for a member of the church, so I immediately flew away. I hunted some other low-level deep-sea life forms in the town and barely recovered from my injuries and replenished some essence. Later, I found you leaving the supermarket with a group of ordinary people, as if you wanted to bring them to the mountaintop to perform a sacrificial ritual. So I prepared to attack you at the edge of the town. Who knew? Who knew? Han Dong was also very curious about what happened at that time. According to the original plot development, he and Nicole would definitely have a fight. At the critical moment, Han Dong unexpectedly had a burst of luck and rolled an equal number, eliminating the omen. Han Dong was very curious about how Nicole's hostility was eliminated at the same time as the omen elimination. While I was storing energy and preparing to get in the car to kill all of you, the Father's voice suddenly appeared in my mind. The Father gave me the guidance to return to the sea, and at the same time told me that you are the only guide who can help me return to the sea. Oh, is that so? Omen, a reality. Han Dong did not expect that even a relatively high-level lifeform like Nicole could be forcibly changed. The mist incident this time was too idealistic, and it also indirectly proved that Han Dong's guess and deduction were correct. As long as this continued, the real ending would definitely be achieved. By the way, there is one more thing I need to confirm with you. Before we met in the parking lot, I encountered a group of soldiers that were transformed by octopuses. Nicole propped up her chin with one finger and immediately continued. It was a small parasitic fish. They are at most the size of a finger, and their bodies are very weak. They are usually snacks for other large fish, but they can quickly parasitize other lifeforms on land. What I want to ask is, when I was dealing with the octopus soldiers, I encountered a terrifying giant lifeform. The giant tentacles with suction cups instantly killed the octopus soldiers, and then it chased me until I escaped to the supermarket area. Its tentacles seemed to have infinite extensibility, and because my magic eye had not been activated at that time, I could not clearly see its appearance. Was it also from the deep-sea race? Who knew? When Han Dong mentioned this matter, Nicole actually blushed. That was me. Due to heavy injuries, loss of essence, and a large amount of water, I fell into an extremely rare, ancient state. I became a deep-sea lifeform that can only rely on instincts to hunt, and all other lifeforms will be absorbed by me. The main reason is because of the loss of essence, causing my brain to fall into a dry state. Generally speaking, only the water of the ancestral sea and some deep-sea lifeforms have the essence that I need. But the strange thing is, you also have it in your body, and you can continuously secrete it without limit. When he said this, Nicole made an expression that looked like she wanted to kiss. There was no other meaning, she simply wanted the essence. Chapter 423. As they approached the top of the mountain, David said worriedly, "Mr. Nicholas, there seems to be a foreign army stationed at the top of the mountain. If they are still alive, they might be able to get a military helicopter to take us out of the foggy area. It's basically impossible. The reason is simple. If the army stationed at the top of the mountain is still alive, they should come to the town for a search and rescue. Moreover, search and rescue has already been done once, which was the octopus soldiers incident. The reason why I asked everyone to take the mountain road is because we simply need to go over this mountain and move inland. It just so happens that if the army stationed here still has weapons and equipment left behind, we can be fully armed and have the basic ability to fight against monsters. If we encounter the octopus soldiers again on the way, everyone will think of a way to kill them and snatch the military equipment." Okay. There was nothing wrong with Han Dong's explanation. Moreover, the equipment left behind by the army was definitely 100 times better than the 4 small pistols in the hands of the townspeople. If they could really loot the arsenal and equip the entire bus, the bus would have a trump card to fight against monsters. When they were about 300 meters away from the top of the mountain, suddenly, the school bus braked. This was because a soldier in camouflage reached out and stopped the school bus. "Mr. Soldier, we are residents of Rhinetown. We hope that the military can provide us with shelter." The veteran driver, Daniel, tried to have a friendly conversation with the soldier outside the window. "Let me get on the bus for a basic inspection. If there are no problems, I will lead you up the mountain." "Okay." Daniel immediately opened the door and let the soldier get on. However, the soldier wearing a breathing mask had just stepped onto the school bus. Swoosh! A self-made steel arrow accurately pierced through the soldier's wrist, causing his hands to be separated from the gun. Before the soldier could react, the protagonist, David, raised the axe that he had been holding tightly and chopped off the soldier's head. Han Dong looked at the scene in silence and muttered softly, "What a pity." As expected, with the overall difficulty increasing, these townspeople have also been strengthened. All kinds of combat skills have been improved. They can actually behead someone with an axe. They are already at the level of an executioner. However, it's still not enough to deal with a real monster. Thud. The soldier whose head fell, but his body did not fall. Creak, creak, a tentacle with a ball-shaped end quickly grew out of the wound on his neck. It had a structure similar to an antenna, intending to spread the news of the emergency. At the critical moment, Han Dong stepped forward and plunged the gasoline bottle he had prepared earlier into his neck. He forcefully inserted the tentacles back into his body and ignited the gasoline at the same time. At the same time, he kicked the burning octopus soldier off the school bus. If it was in the past, this would have been the end of it. The flames would have burned the soldiers to ashes. But now, the difficulty had increased. The soldiers were still alive despite being covered in flames, and they aimed their automatic rifles at Han Dong. Suddenly, whoosh! A pink tentacle came from the back of the school bus, instantly wrapping around the soldier's body and squashing him. Then, the pink tentacles returned to Nicole, who was in the back seat. Thank you. Actually, even if Nicole didn't make a move, the Dozier crows were already circling around the soldiers, ready to pierce through their core with their sharp beaks at any time. They can't even be killed by beheading and burning. How are we supposed to fight against them? For a moment, the determination of the townspeople wavered. At this moment, Han Dong extinguished the flames, took off the unburned bulletproof vest and some equipment, as well as a brand-new automatic rifle, and handed them to the protagonist, David. Kill one of the xenogeniacs, and one of us will be fully armed. In the subsequent battle, you only need to focus on long-range shooting to pin down these mutant soldiers. Nicole and I will deal with the infected soldiers at close range. If we escape now, we won't have any equipment to fight against the monsters in the fog. If we encounter any danger, we will definitely die. David, who had received a full set of excellent equipment, became more confident and immediately agreed with Han Dong. Yes, maybe we can get grenades, rocket launchers, or some high-tech equipment in the armory. If we can equip ourselves, our chances of escaping the fog will be higher. Seeing this, Han Dong smiled and returned to his seat with Nicole. The school bus stopped in the woods by the roadside when it was 200 meters away from the top of the mountain. They changed to walking for the rest of the journey to improve their stealth. This is a military camp? When they approached the top of the mountain, a dark steel wall blocked their way. The overall height was 20 meters. It was completely different from the impression of a military camp. It was more like a special armed organization. Everyone, replenish some water and energy. We might need to stay inside for a while. Han Dong passed 2 buckets of spring water and high-energy food that he had prepared in the supermarket to the townsfolk. Nicole stared at the 2 buckets of water. She could faintly see that the spring water seemed to have been injected with some strange substance. Of course, all of this was done by Han Dong in secret. Nicole just watched silently without saying a word. Gurgle, gurgle. Everyone drank the water to relieve the pressure in their hearts. No one suspected that there was anything wrong with the spring water. Nicole, let's go. Just as everyone was replenishing their energy and drinking water, Han Dong led Nicole back into the woods quietly. They maintained a distance of more than 100 meters from the townsfolk. Not long after, the townsfolk who were eating were captured by the surveillance cameras set up in the black wall. More than 30 fully armed soldiers appeared at the top of the high wall. What's going on? For a moment, the townsfolk were in a mess. They had no idea how to deal with it. However, there was no time for them to deal with it. The moment the soldiers appeared, the bullets had already been fired. 30 automatic rifles fired accurately at the same time. The townsfolk standing in the open area were simply live targets. The bullets passed through everyone's vital part. The vegetation in the forest was completely dyed red. But, 100 meters away, Han Dong, who was hiding in the woods, watched all of this silently. He even showed a satisfied smile, because he didn't receive any system notifications about the deaths of any important people. About 3 minutes passed. The bullets that were shot into the townsfolk's body were squeezed out of the wounds by the wildly proliferating tissues. The townsfolk's bodies began to undergo all kinds of unpredictable changes. Giant sarcomas, eye tissues, sharp claws, or spike structures. All of them underwent crazy mutations under the guidance of the G-virus. The spring water that Han Dong and Nicole brought back had already been injected with the G-virus stock solution. Among them, the mutation of the protagonist David was still within the controllable range. He continued to be the leader of the townsfolk. The protagonist's halo had a powerful effect. Next would be the head-on collision between Resident Evil and the Fog. Phase 2 Order Operation began. Chapter 424. That was what the so-called Tool Man meant. If Han Dong only carried the normal T-virus, the plan would not work like this. But the G-virus was different. Normal bullets could not kill the G-type host. Even grenades, hand grenades, or rocket launchers could not kill it. If the host's body was destroyed, it would allow the out-of-control G-virus to induce the body to mutate crazily. Due to the overall increase in difficulty, the townspeople's physique was also greatly improved, which was more beneficial to the activation and mutation of the G-virus. For a moment, in front of the high black wall of the church, the townspeople who should have been shot to death slowly stood up and transformed into G-type hosts with different forms. 1. The supermarket owner, Mr. Ollie, was slightly smaller due to the effects of dwarfism. Under the stimulation of the G-virus, Mr. Ollie's body continued to shrink and reach the height of a 5-year-old child. Such a small body was overflowing with energy from the mutation, which gave it unimaginable speed. In an instant it was out of the firing range of the machine guns. It gathered strength in its legs and prepared to jump onto the high black wall. 2. Irene, a very brave old lady in the movie The Mist, also underwent a terrifying mutation after being infected. She had a lumbar disc herniated, but her spine suddenly became complete, forcing the old lady's body to lean back and land on all fours. The abdominal cavity that was facing upwards completely split open and grew a honeycomb-like growth structure that could shoot pus or spikes to attack the target. 3. The young man who had made a great contribution by shooting self-made crossbows on the school bus many times also evolved in the direction of shooting after being infected. Due to his excellent body, he did not lose his human form during the mutation. His right wrist had undergone a major change. 2 extremely sturdy growth tissues grew from the top and bottom respectively. A tendon with excellent tendons connected the 2 ends of the tissues to form a bowstring. Together with the huge eyes that grew from his chest, he could accurately lock onto any target and never miss. As for the arrows, the young man directly used his ribs. Under the stimulation of the G-virus, bone cells continued to grow. Such bone arrows were inexhaustible and had amazing power. 4. The fattest black man among the townspeople. Under the stimulation of the G-virus, the fat cells under his skin multiplied and swelled wildly. His entire body had almost turned into a boomer from the path of survival, but his super fat body wouldn't explode at the slightest touch. The fat all over his body could resist almost all forms of damage. Currently, its huge belly blocked about 80% of the bullets, allowing its companions to successfully complete their own mutations. David, on the other hand, maintained his rationality through the main character aura. Except for some protruding veins and white pupils, David almost maintained his original human form, wearing the military equipment Han Dong gave him. David, whose rationality was not affected, continued to be the leader, controlling this powerful biological army. David himself also regarded this mutation as a miracle. This is the chance of rebirth that we have always believed in. Chase these aliens out of our territory. Following David's shout, the terrifying biological army was fully mobilized. Through the spikes, barbs, and hairs that grew on the surface of their limbs, or directly through their super jumping ability, they quickly leaped onto the high black wall and fought the members of the order head-on. Of course, the soldiers, who realized that their weapons were not very effective, also revealed their true forms. A small portion of them were the octopus soldiers that Han Dong had seen before. They had disgusting octopus faces and corrosive tentacles on their back. Some of the soldiers directly grew large insect claws or transformed into the form of ghosts. A war between the biological army and the monsters was fully launched. 100 meters away, Han Dong watched all of this silently. The effect of the townspeople's mutation was better than expected. If the overall difficulty did not increase, based on their original physique, perhaps half of them would have died directly in the mutation and turned into G-virus meatballs that could not move and could only multiply infinitely. Very good. In this way, the Order's attention is almost attracted by this biological army. Nicole, let's go around to the other side of the Order and sneak in quietly. That's amazing. Nicole stared blankly at the biochemical monsters of different forms. At first, she thought that Han Dong had a so-called benevolent heart and wanted to do his best to protect this group of humans who had no chance of surviving in the fog. Now, it seemed that she was wrong again. She stole a glance at Han Dong. Nicole became more curious and interested in this strange human man. Let's go. Oh, due to the requirement of a quick and quiet transfer. Nicole directly turned her legs into more than a dozen slippery tentacles with suction cups that could perfectly adhere to the terrain and perform ultra-fast movements. As for Han Dong, he directly fused with the Dozier Crow. It only took a dozen seconds of transfer time and did not waste much energy. Wow. Nicole stared at the Crowman's form, her eyes shining with curiosity. Within 10 seconds, the two moved directly to the opposite side of the high black wall. When Han Dong landed, the bone wings, together with the changes caused by the fusion of the whole body, quickly converged into his body. In the blink of an eye, the converging was completed at the shoulder and turned into an independent crow. Such skilled fusion and converging was the result of many fusion training with the Dozier Crow. It could effectively save the energy consumption caused by the fusion, and it could also quickly change at any time and place to deal with various unexpected situations. You don't rely on magic circles or contracts to fuse with another species. However, you have the messenger attribute, so it's not strange if you think about it carefully. During the movement, Nicole almost licked Han Dong in his Crowman form. This octopus girl was very curious about all the phenomena on land that she had never seen before. Let's go in from here. The magic eye had long captured the hidden button on the high wall. With the touch of the finger, the identity verification system immediately appeared in the black wall. Han Dong was holding a soldier's head that was chopped off by the protagonist with an axe. It was separated from the body for half an hour, but it was still alive. After successfully verifying the iris and drawing blood for verification, a passage to the territory of the church was fully opened. You have entered the important plot area, Holy Land of the Church. The hidden plot has been triggered simultaneously. Please kill the Bishop Wilcott. Zealot. During this period, bad omens may occur irregularly. Please respond with caution. Just as Han Dong heard the system prompt and was about to pull Nicole into the passage, her moist lips greeted him again. This time, it was neither to absorb the essence nor to provide marine protection for Han Dong. Instead, grumble. Through kissing, Nicole directly transported her main body, the little pink octopus, into Han Dong's body through her mouth and hid. The bishop here has seen me before and will easily recognize my scent. It's better to hide in your body. When you encounter ordinary members of the church, I will provide assistance in your body. When you encounter the bishop, I will come out to help you. Chapter 425. Too bad I can't use the faceless head. Otherwise, sneaking in would be a very simple process. Walking in the long black corridor, Han Dong tried his best to suppress his breath and slowed down his pace. He relied on the G-Virus army to attract attention from the other side. More than 10 G-Virus variants were no joke. In the original Resident Evil game, it would definitely wipe out the main character's entire team. After passing through the corridor, the scene he saw was completely different from what he imagined the military camp structure to be. A large number of black flags were placed on top of this scorched earth. The black flag was branded with a mark that Han Dong couldn't be more familiar with. On Chun-Li's and Toga's necks, there was a mark that read, "Faceless human face with 8 curved tentacles around it." That's right, it was the mark of the faceless head. Nicole's voice came, "This is the mark of the messenger." This group of unruly humans used the name of the Faceless Messenger to carry out the unscrupulous summoning ritual. Faceless Messenger. Faceless Order? Han Dong recalled the Yellow Temple at the same time. Sure enough, everything that happens in the foggy world is centered around me. The opening of the door caused the soil on the top of the mountain to be completely destroyed and turned into a gray scorched earth with black spots. A Gothic-style black church stood in the middle of the scorched earth, and a rotten statue of Jesus hung on the top of the church door. Countless scorched arms were locked on both sides of the church door. A large number of surrounding humans were captured and brought here to be bestowed by the order. Some people couldn't bear the pain and tried to escape the church, but their souls were directly sucked back, leaving only a charred body. On the scorched earth around the church, there were only low-level believers wearing military equipment. Nicole's voice came again. These are just the weakest believers, responsible for the basic patrol and external communication. They can't completely merge with the void object and only got a little power from the bishop. The real core members of the order are hidden in the depths of the church. I also used up most of my essence to get out of the church. Once we enter, we need to kill the bishop to leave. Han Dong nodded and poked the crow on his shoulder with his finger. Dozier Crow, go and lure the normal soldiers away. I need to observe the structure of the church closely. Ga. Although the Dozier Crow was unwilling, it immediately flew out. Through a type of black magic, more than 30 similar crows were conjured and circled above the heads of the soldiers. Immediately they were met with gunfire. However, ordinary bullets were unable to scatter the crows at all. The soldiers had to reveal their true strength to deal with them. Very quickly, a large number of soldiers were lured away. Using this opportunity, Han Dong quickly arrived at the entrance of the Black Cathedral. A liquid-like black barrier sealed the door. This enchantment isolated the church from the outside. Even if one stood at the door, it was impossible to spy on the inside of the church. Just as Nicole had said, once one stepped into it, there was no way out. Bring people. Why aren't you going in? The Dozier Crow flew back. After Han Dong understood the structure and basic distribution of the church, he showed a relieved expression. So it's a completely confined structure. Then there's no need to sneak around. After killing all the low-level disciples in the scorched area, they regrouped with the townspeople. Come to think of it, the so-called bishop will not leave the church. We just need to go in layer by layer. Dozier Crow, you can transform into your original form and kill the enemies with me. Okay. The Dozier Crow was finally able to break free from the shackles of ordinary crows. It turned into a two-headed crowman, and followed Han Dong to attack the soldiers in the scorched area. Han Dong's fighting style was very simple. He used G-arm and yellow sand structure to block bullet. Once the target got close, he killed it with a fire axe. Then, he used his tentacles to suck the body dry. Perhaps because these arm teachers had more attributes, he needed to absorb 2 of them to increase his mythical energy. In the face of such a weak enemy, the Dozier Crow became brave and daring. The combination of sharp claws and black magic completely destroyed the teachers without leaving any residue. Just when Han Dong and the Dozier Crow cooperated to kill about 30 enemies, the zombie team led by the protagonist David dealt with the armed believers in the scorched area from the other side. Some of the townspeople's mutation characteristics became more prominent in the battle, especially the fat man in the team. His belly was nearly 10 meters wide. It was full of hit bullets. Han Dong was actually a little embarrassed to meet the townspeople again. Although everyone did not know that this mutation originated from Han Dong. But in front of the black wall, Han Dong abandoned them and retreated into the woods. Because of the G-virus, the townspeople were not as easy to talk to as before. The content of the conversation in this meeting was extra critical, so he must pay attention to the wording. The relationship with the protagonist David has changed. The dialogue guide has been activated. 1. Mr. David, did you also get special abilities? Pretending to be surprised, then turning into sadness and regret. I couldn't save everyone in the woods just now. I'm sorry. 2. I knew it. During the time in the supermarket, everyone was imperceptibly given special abilities. But you need an opportunity to activate this special ability. I'm glad to see everyone become like this. Our probability of survival is also higher. 3. I confess, all of this was my plan. I secretly injected the mutation factor into the water source. 4. Motherf * cur. Don't look at me like that. You idiots don't really think you can survive in the mist, right? This time, Han Dong was not satisfied with the 4 options given by the guide. He chose to talk according to his own way. Han Dong said with a cold face, "Let's go. The mastermind behind the mist is hidden in the depths of the church. Mr. Nicholas, leading us to the mountain and the mutation of our bodies, were all your plans?" "Yes." Han Dong nodded and did not deny it. "Thank you." The protagonist David did not blame Han Dong at all. David, who had experienced the mist many times, was very clear about one thing. The mist monster that the army could not deal with, even if they were equipped with excellent equipment, they could not fight against it. They did not even deserve to live. But Han Dong gave him a chance. At this moment, David suddenly knelt on one knee. The other townspeople also followed David's action and knelt in front of Han Dong in their own way. "Mr. Nicholas, please lead us out of this nightmare and kill the mastermind behind it. It doesn't matter what we become, we must drive out the aliens in our world." Looking at this scene, Han Dong seemed a little helpless. "I didn't expect it to turn out like this. To be honest, I really don't want to be a leader." Just like that, Han Dong led the zombie army into the Black Church. Chapter 426. While passing through the black door of the church, Han Dong didn't directly arrive inside the church. Instead, he entered a stagnant space. Here, there was only Han Dong. Even the octopus sister Nico, who temporarily lived in Han Dong's body, was blocked. Mythical stage, entered the core area, Black Church. Please draw 4 cards of Bad Omen in a row and arrange them in order of difficulty from low to high to determine the basic structure, monster classification, and overall difficulty of the Black Church. What the hell? The interior scene hasn't been drawn yet, and I have to draw the cards to construct it? Han Dong just complained and then took out 4 cards from the bag of Bad Omens. According to the number of icons, the cards were arranged in order of difficulty from low to high. They were Frowny Face Level 2 Alien Insect card, Level 3 No Return card, Level 5 Prison Lock card, Level 6 Void card. Of course, the judgment process was also necessary. Han Dong was required to roll the dice corresponding to each card. Out of the 4 dice results, only 1 match. The corresponding Bad Omen of the Prison Lock card will not take effect. Please note that in the corresponding bad omen of the Void card, there is the final goal of the hidden plot, Bishop Wilkets, Zealot. The bishop himself will be strengthened by the Void card. Please be careful. As the system's notification ended, Han Dong followed everyone and officially entered the church area. The scene in front of him corresponded to the alien insect card that Han Dong drew. However, after the overall difficulty increased, the two-level bad omen was not easy to deal with. David, ask the townspeople to stay calm for now and don't act rashly. Church Hall, from the situation in front of him, there were many civilians who went to the top of the mountain to seek help, but their ending was more miserable than being killed by the monster in the fog. They fell into a pitiful state where they were better off dead. The rows of benches were full, and there wasn't even an empty seat. The townspeople sat upright in their seat. The nerve connection between their bodies and their brains had been cut off, and they could only accept the collection obediently. In the open area above the church, there was a type of alien insect that Han Dong had never seen before. Its body structure was similar to a dragonfly's, and its overall body was gray. Its 4 transparent wings flapped rapidly, and its overall length was about 1 meter. What should be paid special attention to was that the head of this kind of flying insect was actually made up of numerous baby arms. Each arm could freely extend and contract to carry out the gathering work. Such a soft, boneless, and tiny baby arm that could be freely extended could go deep into the nostrils of the civilians and collect a brain essence that only belonged to human beings. The essence would be placed on the altar in front of the church, most likely to be delivered to the bishop in the depths of the church. Logically speaking, ordinary people would die very quickly if they were to harvest the human brain directly. However, none of the civilians gathered here had died, and all of them were still full of vitality. As long as he looked down, he would be able to see the secret of the collection. Every civilian's legs were connected to more than 10 nutrient tubes, which were constantly delivering stimulative nutrients into their bodies, allowing the part of their brains that had been dug out to quickly grow back and be harvested without limit. The painful process would continue until their bodies were completely old. Nicole, the encyclopedia of the fog, who was hidden in Han Dong's body, immediately began to explain the origin of the disgusting worms. They are the collateral descendants of Migo. They are a group of disgusting worms that like to collect the brain essence of all kinds of life forms, called the baby brainworm clan. They don't have any fighting power, but work is their main task. But there must be a queen mother in the area where they work. The queen mother is the same as the worms that we have dealt with before. The blood of Mu God flows in her body. However, she herself is an extremely sinister existence. Be careful. Before the queen mother bug manifests, do everything possible to get rid of all the infantile brain workers. Otherwise, the queen mother can regenerate infinitely by absorbing the worker worms, which is very difficult to kill. Right. Destroying the worker worms' brains can completely kill them. Nicole, don't do anything for the time being. The bishop may be difficult to deal with, you have to hide until the end. Got it. With Nicole's guidance, Han Dong summoned the zombie army and immediately began the hunting operation. The townsfolk who transformed into G-carriers were quite powerful, especially the young man whose wrist evolved into a bow. Every rib arrow that was shot out was able to pierce through the heads of at least 2 flying insects. The protagonist, David, used the grenade launcher obtained from killing the octopus soldiers to kill 1 baby brainworm per shot. Although such a zombie army was quite powerful, Han Dong did not intend to slack off. He fully controlled the power of the yellow sand and quickly shot out sand spikes to pierce the heads of the insects. In the blink of an eye, about 80% of the baby brainworm clan was eliminated. At this moment, a scream came from the back of the zombie army. The army's long-range attack zombie, Old Lady Irene, was cut in half at the waist. Moreover, the cut-in-half body was completely hollowed out in a short period of time. No one noticed the process. Even the G-virus could not regenerate. The army lost one person. Is the Queen Mother here? The remaining flying insects were left to the zombie army to deal with, and Han Dong was fully focused on the search for the Queen Mother. However, with the little magic eye fully activated, he could not find any suspicious targets in the main hall of the church. Just as Han Dong's gaze shifted to the other side, screams came from the army again. A giant townsfolk with spikes all over his body was instantly cut in half, but this time, because of Han Dong's focus, he noticed the whole process of the hollowed-out body. When the townsfolk whose body was cut in half fell to the ground, a large number of baby arms suddenly stretched out from the smooth cement floor. Just by touching, they could take away a large amount of flesh and blood, instantly hollowing out the flesh and blood of the townsfolk, forcibly interrupting the super-strong regenerative power provided by the G-virus. Just as these baby arms were about to retract into the ground, Han Dong stepped forward. He had a polite handshake with the person in charge of the church hall. Desertification. The ground area was desertified and disintegrated. A graceful lady was forcefully pulled out of the ground by Han Dong. The lady's head was full of tiny baby arms, which were used as hair, and her completely open mouth was full of densely packed, shapeless teeth. The four wings could also be used as sharp blades, instantly cutting the target's body. When such an indescribable scene was reflected in Han Dong's eyes, a sense of discomfort spread throughout his body. But soon, a drop of seawater swayed in Han Dong's head, removing all negative effects. Chapter 427. The so-called Queen Mother was the queen of this group of infant brain bugs. Currently, Han Dong was grabbing one of the baby arms on her head, preventing her from using some kind of burrowing ability. As for the blade-like wings on her back, they were sealed by the yellow sand. There was also a tail with sawtooth blades, which was firmly pinned by 3 bone spikes shot out by the zombie youth in the team. The most dangerous part of this kind of bug that collected brain fluid was the brain. This queen's brain had 2 attributes. Underworld hand. The baby arms on her head could instantly plunder matter through contact, and it could also plunder the earth, allowing this queen to easily burrow into the ground and hide to hunt for food. Brainwave. Not only was it visually impactful, due to the years of using the brain fluid of various lifeforms, the queen's brain could directly affect the brain of any lifeform that emitted highly invasive brainwaves. Using these 2 attributes, the Queen Mother brain bug could put the target in a stagnant state for a period of time, and instantly empty all matter in the body. However, this trick was ineffective in front of Han Dong. "You are not affected by me?" After discovering that Han Dong was not affected at all, the queen was a little panicked. Moreover, the left arm that Han Dong held her hand intimately had magic patterns that originated from ancient Egypt on the surface, preventing the queen from plundering Han Dong's left arm. "Inside your body there's a deep one." Then, through the brainwave penetrating Han Dong's body, the Queen Mother brain bug observed the little pink octopus swimming in Han Dong's body, and instantly understood why he was not affected by the brainwave. The queen was so scared that her face turned pale. Even if there was the blood of Mu God in her body, it was only a very thin subtype blood. In terms of level, she could not be compared to the deep one at all. The next second, squeak! A tentacle directly pierced through the queen's head. Mythical energy +6. For a time, the remaining worker bugs in the church area all lost their ability to move due to the queen's death. The first bad omen in the church area ended. Release these civilians from their suffering. Their bodies have already been injected with eggs. Even if we let them go back, they will still die. Soon, they would become the same disgusting swarm. Moreover, their hearts have already completely collapsed during the harvesting process. They desire death more than anyone else. Han Dong stared at the civilians who were fixed to the bench by various tubes. The pleading look in his eyes was exactly the same as the blond young man named Anthony in the supermarket toilet. Since there was no chance of survival, under the endless pain, death was the only way to escape. Under such a worldview, ordinary people were so powerless. One wrong step and they would fall into the abyss forever. There was no possibility of redemption. Completely powerless terror and despair. This was the core of the fog. Of course, it was also an important idea in Kafka's culture. It was the same in Han Dong's world. As the first type of advanced life form on Earth that possessed the ability to reason and think, many people gradually began to consider themselves as the eternal rulers of the ecosphere. However, humans themselves were not perfect. They could even be said to be extremely fragile. When a higher life form was born, or when the original ruler of Earth woke up, humans fell into a desperate situation in a short period of time. While the zombie army was dealing with the civilians here, Han Dong came to the front of the church hall. There was a round table where the brain essence was collected. The spiral-structured round table transported all the collected brain essence to the depths of the church and provided it to the bishop. At present, in the middle of the round table, a piece of white paper was mixed in with the brain essence. Obtained Original Manuscript 6. Han Dong was the only one who could see the original manuscript. Even Nicole, who was temporarily residing in Han Dong's body, could only see Han Dong absorbing some sort of nutrient. Even if she directly peeked into Han Dong's memories, she wouldn't be able to obtain any information about the manuscript. After picking up the original manuscript, the round table moved away, revealing a stone staircase that led to the depths of the church. Just as Han Dong was about to call the zombie army to continue deeper, he unexpectedly found that the main character, David, was leading all the zombies crazily eating. Of course, their targets were not the civilians. Instead, they were the eggs that were attached to the walls, corners, beams, and behind the statues. The larvae produced by the mother eating the brain fluid were excellent tonic. It exuded a kind of delicious taste that the zombies could not refuse. The most important point was that by eating the eggs, they could stabilize their consciousness and strengthen their control of the G-virus. Allowing the townspeople to control the mutation within a stable range, the overall combat power of the army would be stronger. Since that was the case, Han Dong simply waited for everyone. Speaking of which, what is Mu God? While waiting, Han Dong asked Nicole in his body. After all, this term had appeared twice. A ruler of the insect realm, also known as the origin of all insects. Many insects are more or less related to Mu God. The two insects that we encountered and killed were just low-level species mixed with a thin amount of Mu God's blood. But even if it is a low-level species, they are still stronger than ordinary insects, and they have control and self-consciousness. Listening to what you said, the world on the other side of the door seems to be very big. It is much bigger than the human world. After all, there are many advanced species in our world, unlike here where there are only humans. With Nicole's explanation, Han Dong fell into deep thought. No matter what, whether it was the human world in the fog or the monster world on the other side of the door, they were all classified as destiny space. However, between the worlds there should be a difference in level. Just like the last time when he experienced the ghost stories incident, the Abyss Butcher with Hell attribute actually had a connection with the real Hell world. Obviously, the level of a world Hell was higher than a world ghost stories. But the two had the possibility of interconnection. The other side of the door opened by the mysterious church in the fog, the corresponding world void, might be a higher level world similar to Hell. One needs to reach the level of a knight to reach it. In there exists an existence that I can't fight against at my current level. It also hides incomparably precious treasures and opportunities. Just like how Captain Malone could spend many years in World Hell and go through untold hardships to become the Demon King of Hell. In a world void, there might be a similar possibility to complete some kind of experience and challenge to become a mythical existence like Mu God. Is this the real purpose of the Destiny space? It is not only to give us the opportunity to fight against the life outside the city. It is also to give us a way to completely transform, evolve, and become a superior species. Thinking of this, Han Dong's lips curved up slightly. Chapter 428. The next floor of the church corresponded to the second card Han Dong drew. Level 3, no affiliation. There were only 3 dots on the surface of the card. Going down the dark stone steps, they came to a sealed, a labyrinth-y super-large prison area. Its area was far larger than the original size of the church. There were hundreds and thousands of independent cells below, forming a kind of prison labyrinth. Bad omen, failed order, fear points, bad luck. The church was established hundreds of years ago during the Crusade. Because of the blood sacrifice of war, though a door was opened for the first time by accident. Through the door, an indescribable life form was seen. Its head had no facial structure and was full of twisted tentacles. It had power far beyond that of humans. Led by the Crusaders at that time, the Order of the Faceless was established. Since then, the Order has been secretly recruiting teachers and began to conduct communication experiments in all aspects. Using the human body as a medium, they hope to establish a connection with the world on the other side of the door and obtain enough power to conquer the world. However, the power obtained was extremely difficult to control. Until now, there were still some members of the Order who couldn't control it. The teachers lost themselves during the acceptance period and became failures. However, failures were still good combat power. Therefore, religious orders in various places had built larger prisons to accommodate failed products in case of emergency. Requirements: please find the secret exit to the deepest part of the Order in the prison labyrinth. There is no requirement to kill individuals. The theme this time is to find the way in the labyrinth? Finding the exit is definitely not as simple as it sounds. Otherwise, the failures locked here would have escaped long ago. Finding the exit is difficult. The remaining difficulty lies in the failures here. If we can't find the exit in a short period of time, we may all die. Since the Queen Mother's brainworm, which is 1 level lower, could completely kill the G-virus infected townspeople, the failures here should also have a way to deal with zombies. Although collective action can guarantee safety, it will be impossible to find the exit in a short period of time. Thinking of this, Han Dong tilted his head and looked at the zombie army. He asked them to pair up according to their mutated abilities, 2 to a group. At the same time, Han Dong used black magic to generate a feather and handed it to each team. Once he discovered anything, he would be able to transmit the information to Han Dong through the feather. Of course, this included the death message. Follow me. After the incident with the brainworm in the church hall, Han Dong was very optimistic about the crossbowman in the team. He had shot accurately many times in advance, and even effectively shot at the queen. The young man who had a bow on his wrist, and could use his ribs as a bow and arrow. From Han Dong's perspective, this young man was the best G-virus carrier among all the townspeople. The virus changes to the body were completely in line with his advantages when he was alive. Due to eating the eggs of the cerebrate, the young man's consciousness had also become clearer. Like the main character, David, he could control his mutated body normally. "What's your name?" "Kelvin Charles. I will do my best to assist you, sir." This young man didn't have any prejudice against Han Dong, and after seeing Han Dong's ability, he was especially respectful of Han Dong. Yes. Strange, why is there nothing? When he first came to the underground prison, there were no failures in the few cells closer to the exit of the stone steps on the surface. As Han Dong went deeper and walked more than 100 meters, he saw that all the cells were still empty. There were no failed members of the church, who could not control the energy on the other side of the door and lost consciousness as mentioned in the description of the omen. Han Dong noticed that something had fallen outside the nearest cell and immediately went forward to check it out. This is a finger? It seems that it was forcibly broken by the iron bars when it was forcibly escaping from the cell. However, if I was the one who was trapped and my finger was squeezed when I forcibly escaped from the cell, I would definitely adjust it appropriately. The whole finger wouldn't be completely broken and torn, right? Moreover, even if the finger was broken, I would still pick it up and reattach it, right? The monsters here still have such a simple self-healing ability. Unless this failure didn't escape from the cell on its own, but was forcibly dragged out of the cell by something. Han Dong continued to check the remaining dried meat on the iron bars and further confirmed this speculation. There must be something horrifying down there. As they continued to go deeper, they still didn't see any failures. The unusual silence made Han Dong feel very uncomfortable. This kind of abnormality often meant greater danger. If they couldn't find the reason for the disappearance of the failures, they might be in danger. They went straight to the end. A white steel door was located at the end of the road. The door was printed with the church's faceless emblem. However, there were still a lot of dried blood on the surface of the door, as well as a lot of palm prints that were completely pressed into the door, causing the door to be forcibly destroyed. Laboratory. In the laboratory area that could accommodate about 20 staff, various experimental instruments were scattered all over the ground. Obviously, a very tragic hunting event had taken place here. He stared at the human body blueprint drawn on the wall, as well as some operating tables located in the inner room. Han Dong estimated that the church's researchers had been conducting experiments on the failures here. The specific scene was indescribable. Kevin, organize all the paper materials in the laboratory. Maybe we can find the answer to the disappearance of all the failures, or maybe we can find information about the exit. Yes, sir. Just as the two of them were collecting the materials scattered in the laboratory. Instant annihilation? One of the crow feathers that Han Dong assigned to the zombie corps had lost contact, which meant that the two-person zombie team had died. It was very strange. This was a zombie infected with the G-virus. In the movie Resident Evil, it was an existence that couldn't be killed. But now it died almost instantaneously and did not send back any useful information. It seems that the thing wandering in the imprisonment area is really not simple. The third level of difficulty may only be how to escape the maze, and the thing wandering in the imprisonment maze is above the difficulty of the omen. Therefore, in the omen's request, it didn't ask us to kill this monster, but only to find the exit of the maze. We must hurry to collect the information, or else it will be dangerous. All the information was collected. Kevin, you guard the door. If there is any life approaching, immediately inform me. Don't take the initiative to attack. Yes, sir. Next, Han Dong entered into an absolutely focused state of speed reading. Many keywords were captured by Han Dong. Chimera plan, index alpha is more than 10 times the stability value, abandon the failures. Completely close the imprisonment layer, these idiots. Just as Han Dong was reading, another feather lost contact. Chapter 429. This group of brainless pseudoscientists created a life form that they couldn't even control. They wanted to use knowledge that only touched the tip of the iceberg to create a completely unknown high-level mythical life form. How did such a brainless church survive until now? When Han Dong reviewed the experimental data as a professor, he saw all the loopholes. Failure was inevitable. If Han Dong's students wrote such an experimental preparation and process plan, he would definitely scold them. However, even the bishop couldn't deal with the horrifying life form created. They had to completely seal off the prison area and trap the horrifying failed product on this floor. Food was put in regularly to ensure that the failed product wouldn't go berserk due to hunger. Moreover, to reach the next floor, it's not just about finding the exit. The key is, in Han Dong's hand was a piece of paper titled Emergency Response Methods. Once an uncontrollable dangerous situation occurs in the experiment, and the danger alarm reaches top, the main person in charge of the experiment, Dr. Archibald, will directly seal off the exit of the prison area from the inside. Only after the danger is completely eliminated, the doctor himself will remove the seal through identification. In other words, in addition to finding the exit, we also have to find the key, and the key is Dr. Archibald himself. Along the way, Han Dong had never seen any living creatures. Currently, there was nothing in the laboratory other than dried blood. If he really wanted to find the doctor, he might have to face the failed experiment. After a while, David's protagonist aura seemed to work again. Through the information sent back by the crow feathers, he found the exit of the prison area. However, the exit was reinforced by multiple metal devices. Even with the G-Virus maximum strength, he couldn't break it open. Since there was no more usable information in the laboratory, Han Dong immediately sent out the information and asked the surviving team to immediately gather at the exit found by David. Next, they only needed to find the key to successfully survive the current omen. However, just as the message to gather was sent out, there was another short message from David. Help, there was a problem with the protagonist aura. Han Dong confirmed its existence through the detailed observation of the entire process. David's overall character wasn't that good. In fact, in the original movie, The Fog, he was a little impulsive and easily angered. But during the incident in the fog, David was never injured. With just a few simple words, he was able to provide guidance and encouragement, and within a short period of time, he became the core leader of the townspeople. In the G-Virus infection, David's protagonist aura became even more obvious. After the infection, David continued to maintain his human form, relying on the protagonist's aura to suppress the G-Virus's changes to his body. It was precisely because he had confirmed the existence of the protagonist aura that Han Dong was relieved to let David act separately. Moreover, under the effect of the halo, David did not disappoint and found the important exit. But the life-saving information at the moment shocked Han Dong. The protagonist's aura wasn't omnipotent. It could greatly increase David's luck, charm, and mutation resistance, allowing him to avoid most of the dangers, but it could not avoid certain death. Once the main character died, things would become very complicated. Kelvin, follow me. The exit was not far from the laboratory. Considering the possibility of the main character dying and the existence of unknown monsters, Han Dong immediately chose to merge with the Dozier Crow, flapped his skeletal wings, and rushed over as fast as he could. The young man Kelvin's performance was also excellent. Through the strengthened leg muscles, he followed closely behind Han Dong. The big eyes on Kelvin's chest were observing the surrounding situation at all times. Just as they approached the exit, Han Dong's feathers suddenly trembled, and a rare sense of danger swept through his body. Since entering the world of the fog, he had only felt such a sense of danger when he was escaping the pursuit of the giant tentacle, Nico's tentacle, in the small town. A burst of black gas overflowed near the exit, and even the little magic I couldn't see it clearly. Fireball technique, there were torches on the walls of the prison area. Han Dong, in his crowman form, created an immature dark fireball. Although the stability of the torch was extremely poor, it was more than enough to ignite the torch. When the fire was ignited, an indescribable monster was standing at the exit, and Han Dong was so scared that he stepped back half a meter. When he saw the monster, Han Dong immediately understood why there was no one in the underground prison area, not even a corpse could be found. They were not eaten, but all gathered on the monster's body. The monster's overall outline could be barely distinguished between its limbs and torso. However, the monster's limbs were pieced together from countless failed prisoners, infinitely stacked together. The monster's hand contained more than 100 different types of arms, randomly assembled, and some of the palms were swaying strangely in the air. As for the torso, it was made up of countless heads stuck together, and even the brain tissue was stuck together. This was the runaway chimera experiment that Han Dong read from the experimental data. In Greek mythology, chimera was a monster with 2 heads, a lion head, a goat body, and a snake tail that spat fire. In modern medicine, there was also a term called chimerism, which was used to indicate that a person had at least 4 sets of DNA. The idea of this group of pseudoscientists was simple. They wanted to fuse the failed products and create an individual that was close to a mythical life form, using it as the hidden weapon of the order. The experiment was out of control. The deep fusion index alpha was dozens of times higher than the stable value. All the failed products in the underground prison were fused by the created monster and turned into a terrifying life form that could not be controlled, stopped, or thought. Of course, Dr. Archibald, who was the key to the exit, was also one of them. The difficulty of the omen was already obvious. It required the monster's body to cut off part of Dr. Archibald, remove the seal, and escape the current area. What kind of attack is this? An uncle named Ma Pei was in the same team as David. He suffered from a certain leg disease when he was alive, but under the stimulation of the G-virus, he grew 6 sharp spiked legs. At present, the uncle's 6 legs had been pulled out by the monster. The uncle was not allowed to struggle at all, and his whole body was directly wrapped by countless arms and integrated into the monster's body. After a while, Uncle Ma Pei's limbs and head grew in different areas of the monster, and he even inherited some of the G-virus characteristics, although the experiment was a complete failure. This group of brainless scientists seemed to have created a terrifying monster close to a mythical one. Chapter 430. David, has he been absorbed? While the monster was absorbing the poor man's life force, the poor man was still alive. Han Dong found protagonist David on the monster's body. When David sent out a distress signal, he had been absorbed by the monster. It seemed that he had no chance to escape. Due to the effect of the protagonist's aura, most of David's body was gathered together at the monster's waist and abdomen. From his eyes, it seemed that he still retained his self-consciousness, and there was still a possibility of rescue. Han Dong immediately manipulated a piece of yellow sand and turned it into a sharp cutting blade, trying to cut David down. However, just as the yellow sand was about to reach the target, in the Crow-Man form, Han Dong's perception was amazing. Because of sensing the approaching danger, the monster quickly moved back with the bone wings. Han Dong faintly felt that this monster was hiding some secret that could instantly kill the target and absorb it. Whoosh! The yellow sand hit nothing. The monster with a huge body and a height that could reach the top of the prison area actually moved directly to the position in front of Han Dong from 5 meters away in an instant. If it weren't for Han Dong's premonition of danger and retreat in advance, his body would have been grabbed by countless arms and become a part of the monster's body. Space transfer? Han Dong couldn't see such an ability in the experimental data. It was estimated that some failed trainers imprisoned on this floor had incomplete space ability. After being absorbed by the monster one by one, the space ability was completed. This scene scared the crossbow-wielding young man, Kevin. At this time, Han Dong's order came. Kevin, do everything possible to attract the target's attention. The key to the next floor is on this monster. I have to find a chance to take it down. Okay. Even if there was fear in his heart, Kevin still obeyed the order. Crack! 3 ribs were taken out and the bow was drawn. The arrow with a certain rotation vector directly shot the 3 heads on the monster's body. The attack was effective. The head was shot through, although the broken wound was immediately filled with other meat. At least it showed that basic physical attacks were still useful. This monster had almost no defense. Such an attack attracted the chimera's attention. Immediately, he leaned his body towards the young man and waved his overgrown palms in the air, as though he was beckoning Kevin to join his base camp. Run. Try your best to make use of the prison environment. Don't get caught. Yes. Kevin was smart and had a strong body. The first thing he did was to run towards the iron cell at the side. Using the flexibility of his body, he squeezed through the gaps between the iron bars. At this moment, the chimera's life also underwent a space transfer. It happened to shift into Kevin's escape route, so that the monster's body was completely embedded in the iron bars. This was the reason why Han Dong let Kevin take advantage of the environmental factors. If he moved the other materials in the space, the monster's body would be mixed with them, because he was currently in the iron fence area. After the transfer, the monster's body combined with the iron bars, temporarily restricting its movements. Kevin turned around again and shot 3 arrows in the air. The spiral-shaped rib arrows were extremely penetrative. One of the arrows even shot off both of the chimera's arms, further attracting its attention. Not only organic matter, but also inorganic matter can be fused? It's just that this monster prefers to absorb organic matter. The next scene scared the young Kevin so much that he didn't dare to be greedy and decisively fled. The iron bars that penetrated the monster were completely absorbed in a short period of time, and some steel shells grew on the monster's body in the area of its limbs. Kevin didn't want to become part of such a terrifying monster, so he immediately chose the best route to escape. At the moment when the monster absorbed the iron bars, 2 sharp tentacles whipped from the side. Whoosh! These black and spotted tentacles directly tore the flesh of the monster's waist and abdomen. Then, they pulled out all the parts that belonged to the protagonist, David. Ah! The process of the tentacles whipping and the flesh separating brought great pain to the monster. The head that formed its torso let out a tragic cry, echoing in the passage. The aggro value increased greatly. The target immediately shifted to Han Dong. No matter how many arrows Kevin shot, he couldn't grab the aggro. The task that Mr. Nicholas gave me, I must complete it. At the critical moment, Kevin took out an arrow he made himself from his backpack. It was originally prepared to deal with the bishop hiding in the deepest part. Soft body arrow. There was a crystal-clear insect body wrapped around the tip of the arrow. That's right. When the team was in the church hall, Kevin collected all the corrosive body fluids of the baby brain worker insect, and made a special insect egg corrosive arrow, a total of 6 arrows. The muscle bowstring was pulled to the maximum limit. The naked eye locked on the monster's waist and abdomen wound. Whoosh! Search 2 arrows were shot in a row. The first arrow was an ordinary rib arrow, using a spiral structure to continue to destroy the wound. The second insect egg arrow directly shot into the hole created by the first arrow. The corrosive fluid exploded in the monster's body. All this was done before the monster could teleport, and once again grabbed the aggro. It's a success. Kevin smiled. He thought that such an attack could make the monster stagnate for a while. But in the next second, Kevin's smile froze. Kevin, run. Teleport. Whoosh! The monster reached out and touched the young Kevin, who had just tried to escape. At first, it was only a small palm that touched Kevin's arm. In the next second, it was entangled with dozens of different palms. In less than 3 seconds, Kevin would be completely dragged into it and become part of the monster. At the critical moment, out of the instinct to survive, Kevin decisively pulled out the sharpest rib in his body and completely cut off his right arm with a backhand knife. Before the other parts of the body were touched by the monster, he broke free from the restraint by cutting off his arm. At the same time, a grenade that was plundered from the military area was thrown. Boom! With the impact of the grenade, Kevin successfully pulled away from the monster. The explosive power of the grenade was not enough to cause harm to him who was infected by the G-virus. With the impact, he flew to the distance of the prison and successfully escaped. This kid is really good. Han Dong was shocked by the series of battle just now. He thought that the young man named Kevin might have the blood of a warrior flowing in his body. But the most important thing now was the problem of the key. Although David, who was torn off, was still alive, his whole body was in a mess. Due to being integrated into the monster's body, David's body was completely dislocated. Not only were his hands and feet upside down, but his internal organs were also completely overturned. There were even 2 extra kidneys of unknown people. Mr. Nicholas, thank you. I got a very important piece of information. When I was integrated into the monster's body, I was connected to the brains of other people who were integrated, and I know all the secret. Han Dong immediately asked, "Where is Dr. Archibald in the monster?" "Right here. After I integrated with the monster. Immediately try to get the doctor's body over." David pointed to the bulging part of his abdomen. Swish. "Please imagine the process yourself." Obtained Dr. Archibald's head. Han Dong immediately carried the head to the exit area to perform blood and iris tests. Prison area, closed facilities are being removed. Chapter 431. Various sealed facilities are being removed. Remaining time, 3 minutes. While waiting, the protagonist, David, had used the G-virus to slowly shift the disordered organs in his body and return to normal. At the same time, zombies from other areas also arrived one after another. You all wait at the exit. Once the sealed facilities are removed, immediately go deeper. I will bring Kevin back. Being able to successfully seize the key and buy time was mostly due to the young Kevin's efforts. Han Dong did not expect that there would be such an outstanding talent among the townspeople. Based on Kevin's performance just now, Han Dong was ready to give him more funding, on the premise that this kid was not dead yet. Whoosh! The bone wings flapped. In the form of the Crow Man, Han Dong caught Kevin's tracks in a short time. This kid can already use the terrain flexibly. He found a prison that existed side by side with a thick stone pillar in the middle. With this terrain, Kevin avoided the monster's pursuit by circling around, passing through the prison, and jumping. This kind of chimera monster that gathered thousands of lives could only be quickly close to the target through space transfer. But its movement was not fast. Kevin used this feature to restrain the monster. Moreover, in the process of circling around the monster, Kevin's body also underwent a series of evolutions. A very sturdy barb structure grew on his heels, elbows, and fingers, allowing him to easily stick to walls and ceilings. Let's try to see how strong this chimera is. If the strength is high enough, I can design a tripartite situation. Due to Kevin's perfect restraint, Han Dong temporarily hid in the dark and waited for time to pass. The sealed facilities in the prison area have been completely removed when he heard the notification. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Thick tentacles with spots were already dragging on the ground. It was slightly different from before. Han Dong used more mythical energy this time and directly turned his entire right forearm into a tentacle. At the same time, he also inherited the characteristics of the G-virus. Rows of derived sawteeth were evenly distributed on the surface of the tentacle. Whip. Looking for the right opportunity, Han Dong swung his right arm with all his strength. The hardened, serrated tentacles heavily whipped the chimera monster's body. A monster without any defense would not be able to withstand such a sneak attack. Tentacle strike. The monster's body immediately disintegrated. Whoosh! After being neutralized, oil rained down on this side of the prison. All kinds of body parts from different failed products were scattered all over the ground. The effect of power strike was better than expected. However, the monster's vitality did not weaken. "Oh my God!" Nicole exclaimed. The little pink octopus hiding in Han Dong's body seemed to have found something very special in the monster's remains through Han Dong's optic nerve. Kelvin, quickly gather with everyone and head to the next level. Okay. What about you, sir? I need to observe this monster. I'll be back soon. I'll wait for you at the exit. Kevin was also shocked by Han Dong's attack. After giving him a respectful look, he got down on all fours and ran toward the exit like a wild beast. Some indefinite objects floated in the monster's remains that had completely collapsed. Sometimes they were multifaceted prisms that could refract the fire into colorful rays. Sometimes they were spherical with a vortex inside. Nicole, what is this? I was very curious from the beginning. How did this mess of things form? It turns out that there is a colorless crystal in its body. Nicole looked excited and shocked. Some pink tentacles even scratched Han Dong's body, giving him a comfortable itch. Colorless crystal? You have the attribute of a messenger in your body, but you don't know? Nicole's words were full of doubts, as if she was a human who breathed air every day but didn't know what air was. I really don't know. Han Dong was also confused. Colorless crystals are the most precious and rare substances in our world. They occasionally exist in the depths of various dangerous forbidden areas. The origin of every messenger is related to the colorless crystal. You need to fuse the colorless crystal with your body to become a faceless messenger. You mean there is such a crystal in my head? As an encyclopedia, Nicole continued to explain, of course, your head and the crystal have completed a perfect 100% fusion. From my personal feeling, it is not an ordinary colorless crystal. In terms of quality, it is much higher than the crystal in this monster's body. Otherwise, Father God would not entrust me to you. The crystal in this monster's body is just a defective product, but it is terrible enough. Then why did this guy become like this? Out of control. It is not so simple to control the colorless crystal. I don't know how many creatures have found the colorless crystal, but because they can't control it, they become similar to this monster. This is also the reason why messengers are extremely rare. You and this monster have similar attributes, don't you? The colorless crystal naturally has a built-in space that can accommodate for an object. Its loss of control is like containment failure. After it is completely out of control, the main body will contain other creatures without limit. The internal space of the crystal is chaotic, and it can't store things. Therefore, the contained individuals are expressed in the form of disorder in its body, resulting in the current chaotic, dislocated, and compressed monster state. As for its space movement ability, it is also endowed by the crystal. After Han Dong heard this explanation, he showed a look of surprise. Oh, the defective crystal in its body is still useful to me? It is useless. The creatures that have been contained because of the loss of control have exceeded thousands. The value of the colorless crystal has been completely squeezed out. Why don't you do it? The crystal in the monster's body is exposed. With your means, you should be able to directly destroy the crystal. This kind of thing that is completely out of control, there is no need to kill it. Han Dong carefully observed the crystal suspended in the air and immediately revised the original plan in his mind. The monster corresponding to the colorless crystal was incorporated into the main plan. At this moment, suddenly, a feeling of space being contained spread out from the inside of the crystal. The originally collapsed monster instantly merged into a whole in the form of disorder. Very good. Han Dong retreated at the fastest speed, flapping his bone wings and rushing to the exit. Go. Go to the next floor. Don't close the exit, leave a gap. Sir, is the monster dead? Kevin asked. Not dead. Why should I leave it? The more the merrier. Chapter 432. Escape successful. Bad omen, failed church product has been deciphered. Just as Han Dong walked down the deeper stone steps, He picked up another piece of paper on the stairs. Obtained original manuscript 7. All the original manuscripts were collected by Han Dong separately and would be used at special moments. The monster could catch up at any time. Han Dong needed to pass through this floor and go to the lowest floor where the bishop was, which was also the most dangerous core area of the church. Because of Han Dong's dice, Level 5 prison lock card was removed. Therefore, the current floor did not pose any danger. Nicole's voice came. I told you before, the members of the church will summon the low-level life forms in the alternate space to fight here through a summoning ritual. The strongest life forms that survive will be combined with the outstanding members of the church. They will create an elite team of the church's cabinet. Han Dong nodded, stared at the empty floor, and communicated with Nicole. Well, it seems that they already know about our invasion and have suspended the relevant work here. Let's go directly to the lowest floor. The zombie army will delay the elites of the church, and we will directly target the bishop. Okay. Han Dong and Nicole were both prepared, but the ultimate goal of the two was different. Nicole's goal was to kill the bishop and return to the deep sea through the door. However, Han Dong's purpose seemed to be related to something even deeper. Kelvin, come here. Han Dong called the young man who performed well to his side. He did not ask too much. Whoosh! Han Dong poked a finger directly into Kelvin's heart, and a high-concentration G-virus stock liquid was immediately injected. Thump! The sound of the heartbeat echoed in the current floor, showing how much burden the body was under. In Han Dong's observation, from the first time the townspeople accepted the G-virus, except for the basic stability, only Kelvin could achieve a deep evolution. Therefore, he decided to give the young man more opportunities. Hold on. Kelvin covered his heart with both hands, and a large amount of proliferative tissue appeared around his heart. After a while, the situation stabilized. A higher concentration of the G-virus was displayed by Kevin in the form of a bone spur. Sharp and sturdy bone spikes covered Kevin's entire body like bone armor. Not only did it provide defense, but it also allowed him to shoot arrows faster and allow him to fire multiple shots consecutively. Very good. Let's go. The passageway to the deeper levels was right in front of them. However, when the team reached the central area of this floor, Supreme Emissary, did you come in person? The ghostly voice entered Han Dong's mind, and only Han Dong could hear it. What is it? When the demonic eye looked over, there seemed to be a faceless ghost floating in the shadows. It didn't feel any hostility. As Han Dong came face to face with Spectre, he was immediately surrounded by various cyclones and entered a kind of shadow realm. He was completely separated from his teammate. In this domain, the blurry ghost slowly revealed its true form. A faceless spirit was nailed to a stone pillar by a large number of long black nails. Its body was covered with all kinds of strange symbols. The formation of the shadow realm was caused by the symbols on this person's body. Its facial features seemed to be covered by a thin film, and only a little of its nose and concave mouth lines could be seen. You are. I used to be the deputy bishop of the church, and also the person in charge of this floor, Truman Dale. Because I obtained a power that came from the depths of the void, I was envied by Bishop Wilkets. He was afraid that I would seize his position and power, so he imprisoned me here. That guy had been swallowed by greed and was addicted to the void, unable to extricate himself. I knew that one day, Lord Emissary would come in person to stop Wilkets' crazy actions. However, I feel that Lord Emissary seems to be restrained by our world and can't exert all your power. I'm willing to tell you about the secrets of the church and Wilkets. Han Dong pretended to be arrogant as a Lord Emissary. However, he was surprised. Such special treatment again. Could it be that if the bad omen is eliminated through the die, the corresponding bad omen will become good luck? The first time I met Nicole, I got such an assistant. The second time, I can get the help of a core member of the church? There were two important points in the information given by the deputy bishop. First, the big array used to open the door still existed at the lowest level, and the bishop was still trying to obtain the power on the other side of the door. Second, a series of information about the power of the void that the bishop obtained, which needed to be paid attention to during the battle. Lord Emissary, please absorb me into your body, and I can become the most basic energy. My soul has been nailed here by the bishop, and once the nail is pulled out, my soul will be scattered. If I can become a part of the Lord Emissary's energy, it can make my death meaningful. Han Dong did not say much, and a few tentacles appeared and absorbed the man, turning him into a part of the mythical energy. The shadow domain was removed, and Han Dong immediately led the team to the deepest level. At the same time, the monsters in the prison labyrinth area also lifted the steel plate that led to this level and chased after them. On the stone steps leading to the deepest level and the surrounding stone walls, there were a few parts that flashed with a dark purple light. It was not paint. If one looked carefully, one would find that the area covered by the dark purple seemed to correspond to the dimensional space. It was like a kind of disorderly space passage. The void can swallow other spaces. Because the door opened here before, the surrounding space is partly occupied by the void. Try not to come into contact with the void. The body of an ordinary person will be directly stripped away. Han Dong immediately told the team members Nicole's explanation. The deeper they went, the more the purple void covered, and the battle area was limited to a certain extent. This time, the depth of the descent was much deeper than before. Finally, they came to a rather open inner area. 5 intricately carved giant stone pillars stood in the central area, forming a large circle. A summoning array was engraved on the inside. It seemed that the door had opened once from the inside. Dozens of members of the church wrapped in crimson robes stood straight where they were, as if waiting for the arrival of the intruders. In the deepest part of the circle, a mysterious person in a dark purple robe sat on a chair piled up with bones, and it was the bishop himself. Han Dong's attention was not on the bishop, but on the 5 intricately carved energy stone pillars and the undamaged summoning array with his magic eye. Looks like everything is ready. Chapter 433. David. The members of the church here are all elites. They are very difficult to deal with. The only thing you need to do is to stall them. When the monster that is chasing us reaches this level, it will naturally be taken care of. Understood. Han Dong turned to the youth who had reached the G2 stage, Kevin. Kevin, follow me. Let's go directly to this behind-the-scenes bishop. Okay. He released a flock of crows to carry Kevin, and together with Han Dong, they charged towards the bishop. These teachers were completely unfazed by the intruders flying over their heads. It was as if the bishop had secretly told all the teachers that he would personally deal with this new offering that came to him. This bishop corresponded to the bad omen of the highest difficulty of mist. At the same time, it involved a rather strange attribute, void. According to the information given by the vice-bishop, this bishop, Wilcott's fanatic, used a special method to absorb energy from various aspects, causing it to accidentally come into contact with the domain of the void. Compared to some of the original life forms in the void, he was not weak at all. He was even stronger than the Deep One, royal family, Nico by a level. The following was the information given by the vice-bishop. The bishop has already offered half of his body to the void. Correspondingly, the void has created half a void body for him. If compared to all the church branches in the world, the bishop currently has the power of the void. It is completely possible for him to merge into the church, but greed made him continue to stay here, trying to obtain more powerful energy. The power of the void allows the bishop to directly cause damage to all kinds of life forms. At the same time, it is unpredictable. Even a soul like me can be easily killed by the bishop. At the same time, the void is a double-edged sword. If he is not careful, the bishop himself will never be reincarnated. The void attribute. Let me try. When he reached the attack range, Black Plague, a plague technique created by Han Dong, the fusion of plague, black magic, and pollution. Once the Black Plague's light touched a living thing, it would corrode both the body and the consciousness. However, the bishop raised his right hand that was full of purple spots in the void and made a light stroke. Buzz, a small opening in the void was torn out of thin air. The Black Plague was completely sucked in. A one-way tear in the void. What about this? Han Dong raised his left arm. The stony ground around the bishop immediately disintegrated into sand. At the same time, more than 10 sand spikes were formed and pierced towards the bishop's body. Whoosh! When the sand all came into contact with the bishop's dark purple robe, there was a space warp phenomenon. What the sand all pierced was the void, not the robe itself. Void robe. Then why was there a need to draw a void passage when facing the Black Plague? This meant that the robe wasn't omnipotent. Some attacks couldn't be avoided. If he wanted to defeat the bishop, he had to first destroy his robe. The setting of mist is really troublesome. It completely weakens the various magical abilities I possess. How can the sand from Imhotep be so weak? While Han Dong was thinking, the 2 crow heads on his shoulders immediately cried out in warning as a sense of danger assaulted him. Under the bishop's sleeve, a purple arm that seemed both real and illusory suddenly grabbed at him. Whoosh! It almost brushed past Han Dong's body, leaving a crack in the void where it had grabbed. If it had grabbed him directly, his flesh might have been instantly peeled off. At this moment, a few spiral bone arrows were shot towards the bishop from different angles. Young Kevin provided support, wanting to share the burden with Han Dong. But the result was the same. Even an arrow that seemed to be able to shoot through the front of the robe was still diverted into the void. If the robe couldn't be broken, physical attacks wouldn't be effective. Attack appropriately. Predict the bishop's attack in advance. Han Dong's voice was directly transmitted to Kevin's ears through a crow. Okay. Kevin immediately supported himself with one hand on the ground and quickly flipped to the side, avoiding the void arm that grabbed him from the side. High mobility and sharp observation as an archer were the reasons why Han Dong chose to bring this young man along. If he had chosen other townsfolk to face the bishop, who represented the most ominous omen, they would have been killed by the void glass within 3 seconds. Han Dong didn't use any deeper abilities. He only used the yellow sand to deal with the plague. His goal was simple, to stall for time. However, the battle at the back wasn't going well. The zombie army led by the protagonist was at a complete disadvantage against the elite instructors below. They could only rely on the strong regenerative ability of the G-Virus to support themselves. They couldn't even fight head-on. So far 2 townsfolk's heads had been smashed, and their consciousness dissipated. This caused the G-Virus to lose control and catalyze the rapid proliferation of the body, forming a giant fleshy lump full of sharp teeth. If this continued, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Thud! The sound of heavy footsteps came from the entrance. This made Han Dong smile while flying in the air. It's finally here. When this thing doesn't have a target, it can't teleport. It's really slow. The long-awaited chimera monster finally came to the lowest level. After sensing the presence of living creatures, it immediately teleported in front of a red-robed instructor. This red-robed instructor wasn't weak. He had fused with a crab life form with extremely strong defense. Not only was his body indestructible, but his 2 giant front claws easily snapped the body of a townsfolk. But such attacks and defenses were useless in front of the monster. Countless arms, feet, and even some organs instantly crawled all over the crab instructor's body. His giant claws could only snap off a few arms at most. They couldn't stop the monster's movements at all. In the blink of an eye, they were sucked into the monster's body. In the next second, a giant crab claw grew from the side of the monster, and some sturdy crab shell structures also appeared on some parts of its body. For a moment, the current area became a little chaotic due to the arrival of this monster. The instructors all looked troubled and became vigilant. Even the bishop, who was determined to win, was affected to a certain extent. The moment his attention was distracted, Han Dong waved his right arm with all his might. Mythical energy -5 For a moment, the forearm quickly split into 4 spotted tentacles. Ignoring the influence of the void, they wrapped around the bishop's robe and forcefully stripped off the robe that wrapped around his body. Sizzle! However, after the robe left the bishop, it immediately lost its form and turned into a purple liquid that originated from the void. The liquid itself was extremely corrosive, leaving a few large purple holes on the surface of the tentacles. Wah! It was so painful that the veins on Han Dong's forehead bulged, and his whole body twitched. The damage to the tentacles was like the pain of touching the soul. It was very uncomfortable. He immediately used a part of his energy to repair the large purple wounds on the surface of the tentacles. This guy can't be considered human anymore, right? Hidden under the robe, the bishop who ruled this division, Wilcott's fanatic, was bald. He wore a Prometheus, the origin of the aliens, style corset. It was a structure of various black rings. The embedded multi-layered soft tube structure connected many parts of the body. A circle of soft black neck brace wrapped around his neck and the back of his head. Other than the head, the exposed skin of the body was covered with purple void spots. In between the bald head's eyebrows, there was a void gem embedded. His pupils were also in a completely void state, as if he could see through very deep matter. The bishop bent his knees slightly and made a ceremonial gesture of welcome towards Han Dong. Lord Emissary, welcome. Chapter 434. Since they all knew that Han Dong was an emissary, the killing intent hidden in the bishop's body did not decrease at all. Endless greed even made him want to seize the emissary's identity. Han Dong, who was staring at this scene, was also very curious. If I succeed in the judgment of the bishop's bad omen when I roll the dice, the bishop will not be hostile to me. I think this bishop will not be hostile to me, and will really treat me as an emissary. As long as I handle it properly, I should be able to take over here smoothly and become the head of the church's branch. The plot line will be completely changed. Maybe I will need to lead the church deep into the void, or be given a mission to rule the world. Let's not think too much about it. Right now, I should think of a special way to deal with the bishop. Han Dong stared at the chimera monster that was indiscriminately absorbing the members of the church and the townspeople. After estimating the monster's absorption speed, he officially launched the plan. Nico is ready to make a move. Yes. The wings flapped. Han Dong went straight to the bishop, releasing nearly 100 crows in the process of flying, just to interfere with the bishop's vision. However, the bishop was not moved at all, allowing a large number of crows to circle around him. The void eye stared at Han Dong. At this time, the bishop's right arm stretched straight forward, and any crow that touched the arm turned into a pile of purple residue. Void tear. A broken void opening directly blocked Han Dong's flight path. Once he fell into it, his body would be completely destroyed by the chaotic void. At the same time, in the torn void opening, there were even many void claws. See-through, plus yellow sand. Han Dong predicted such a crisis in advance. He immediately created a yellow sand round platform to cushion his step. The stomping of the legs and the rapid change of the wings allowed Han Dong to achieve a Z drift in the air. In an instant, he crossed the void opening. When he reached the attack range, tentacle transformation, mythical energy consumption. The right arm immediately turned into 5 spotted tentacles, violently whipping at the target. The bishop's eyes changed, and the purple spots on his body lit up with a bright luster. 5 solid void arms grew from the center of the bishop's chest, firmly grasping the tentacles. Their powers were equal. However, the void attribute could cause damage to Han Dong's tentacles. Sizzle! Purple smoke rose, and the pain made Han Dong's whole body tremble. Yellow sand. Han Dong used another bit of energy to disintegrate the ground under the bishop's feet, trying to make it lose its balance. Who knew? The bishop was floating in the air. Lord Emissary, is it because your status is too high that you were strongly suppressed when you descended into this world? I wonder if Lord Messenger can lend me your identity. I really want to explore the world on the other side of the door. At this moment, a small pink octopus was spat out of Han Dong's mouth. The seemingly harmless pink octopus immediately transformed into Nicole's human form as it flew. Squeak, squeak. More than 10 octopus tentacles with suction cups wrapped around the bishop's body. However, Nicole's eyes were wide open, as if she had encountered something that she could not understand. Why is there no effect? The octopus tentacles, which could originally squeeze and suck, had no effect on the bishop. Bursts of purple light overflowed from the gaps between the tentacles. Boom! Void explosion, whoosh whoosh whoosh. The broken octopus tentacles that were corroded by the void scattered and fell to the ground, turning into purple polluted seawater. Nicole spat out a mouthful of sea essence, and fell to the ground due to her injuries. Taking a closer look, in the bishop's hand was a purple crystal that had lost all its energy. He had used the void energy stored in this crystal to block the octopus tentacles and cause the explosion. Deep One, I knew you would return. This void crystal is something that I obtained by sacrificing more than 10 of my loyal instructors. It's specifically used to deal with you. If Lord Emissary did not appear, the Deep One blood flowing in your body would also be the key for me to enter the void. The bishop had already prepared everything. Next, let me obtain Lord Emissary's crystal. Saying so, a few more void arms reached out to grab Han Dong. Han Dong took out an item card from behind his back and used one bad omen point to activate it. Corpse feather armor has been equipped. BZZT BZZT BZZT. When the void arms grabbed Han Dong's body, purple smoke rose. Han Dong was in so much pain that he spasmed madly, blood even flowed out from his eyes. The heavily injured Nicole fell to the ground. She wanted to stand up, but she kept slipping on the ground. She was unable to help at all. She could only watch as Han Dong was slowly dragged towards the bishop. At the same time, the purple crystal embedded in between the bishop's eyebrows slowly condensed into a small baby's arm. It could directly pierce through Han Dong's head and take out the colorless crystal hidden inside. At that time, the bishop would remove his void crystal and accept the rare and precious colorless crystal, directly promoting him to emissary. The distance between them was less than half a meter. The small hand was slowly reaching towards Han Dong's forehead. The young man Kevin was very anxious. He continuously shot more than 10 spiraling arrows. These pure physical attacks were immediately disintegrated by the void energy when they touched the bishop. It was a dead end. The bishop, who was about to succeed, smiled. Such a weak emissary actually voluntarily sent himself to me. My luck is really good. Oh, is that so? Han Dong, who was originally bleeding from all 7 orifices and spasming uncontrollably due to the pain, suddenly turned his head and showed an evil smile. The spasms, bleeding from all 7 orifices and other painful expressions were all Han Dong's self-acting. At the cost of destroying the corpse feather coat, he negated the damage from the void arms. Ominous points -2. Summoning card, a Wicked Woman, active for 1 hour. Summoning card, a Hell Monk, active for 1 hour. At that moment, 2 auras that the bishop had never seen before appeared around him. Because the bishop had been observing the intruder Han Dong the entire time, he had already prepared a countermeasure. He also secretly created a void crystal to deal with the Deep One. However, the sudden appearance of these two unusual creatures completely exceeded the bishop's expectations. Chains made from hell's lava wrapped around the bishop's body. A cold gleam of a blade flashed. Swish, the bishop's head was cut off. However, his vitality did not decrease. He was only unconscious for a period of time due to the loss of his head. After a while, the void energy would reconstruct a new head. Togu, throw him to the center of the formation of the 5 stone pillars. Miss Chinli, please lure the chimera monster that is absorbing others into the formation as well. Be careful, that monster can teleport. Okay. After the two of them took action. Han Dong did not take action, he just sat down. Crossing his legs, he sat on the white bone chair that once belonged to the bishop, his hands lightly resting on both sides of the armrest. The crows that were released earlier circled above Han Dong's head and around the seat. The plan has entered the second phase. I hope everything goes smoothly. Chapter 435. Octopus Sister Nicole, who was severely injured and lying on the ground due to her tentacles being shattered by the void explosion, was in a daze. She stared at Han Dong, who was sitting on the white bone chair with his legs crossed, and was confused by what just happened. She was very clear about one thing. Void, even on the other side of the door, pure void creatures were still rare. The void attribute could directly cause damage to the essence of things, and was very dangerous. However, Han Dong only suffered some superficial wounds when he was being grabbed by more than 10 void arms. Obviously, Han Dong was wearing a kind of equipment that was similar to a living body, and sacrificed his equipment to resist the void damage. Even so, it was still unbelievable that he could sit here and lead the overall situation without any injuries. In addition, the sudden appearance of the two helpers also shocked Nicole. Due to the deep sea attribute, Nicole was very afraid of the bald man who came from the depths of hell. The hellfire he carried seemed to be able to evaporate the water in the deep sea. Nicholas! She looked at the two helpers, who were luring the enemy, and then turned to look at Han Dong, who was sitting on the white bone chair. For a moment, Nicole could not see through Han Dong. As expected of the Lord Messenger, Nicole was completely conquered. After all, she was a deep one with royal blood. When she first met Han Dong, because she could only feel a very weak messenger's aura, Nicole actually had a certain degree of suspicion. However, the incidents were handled time and time again. Until now, when he even tricked the bishop, Nicole had to admit that this young man was definitely worthy of the title of messenger. Another perspective. Han Dong looked like he had victory in his hands, and he was leisurely sitting on the chair that belonged to the bishop. In fact, Han Dong did not want to be like this. He also wanted to follow Togu and Chun-Li and carry out the luring plan together. This way the success rate would also increase. But he really could not move. What? Can it not be so painful? Even the corpse feather coat could not completely block it. The damage of the void power is really terrifying. On the surface, Han Dong looked as if nothing had happened. He crossed his legs and pretended to be cool. In fact, the corpse feather coat, worn in the body, was broken in many places, and the corresponding flesh between the cracks was eroded by the void. Even the G-virus mixed cells were completely killed. At present, he could only lean against the chair and slowly heal himself. Any slight movement would cause him to scream in pain. The reason why he pretended to be like this was naturally because he had a purpose. Otherwise, Han Dong would have been rolling on the ground in pain. Detected a change in relationship with VIP, Nicole's small claw. Friendly, respectful. When he heard this notification, it meant that Han Dong's act had succeeded. All this time, Nicole had shown a suspicious attitude, and Han Dong was very clear in his heart. After all, the real Lord Messenger probably had the power to turn the clouds and rain with a flip of her hand. Since Han Dong's ability could not keep up, he could only try to convince the girl from another angle. Phew! He's really putting his life on the line. Even though the pain was bone-piercing, Han Dong still used his demonic eye to observe the formation constructed by the boulders. He had to ensure that the plan went smoothly. Chun-Li cut off her head with evil energy, but she could actually regenerate it quickly in a short period of time. The void body is really powerful. Bishop Wilkets, who had just been thrown into the boulder formation by Togu's iron chain, had balls of purple substance overflowing from his neck, constructing the embryonic form of a head. During this time, the power of the void was also eroding Togu's iron chain, and he could break free at any time. Soon, the hexagonal void crystal appeared between the bishop's eyebrows again, and his consciousness was stable. Togu, retreat from the formation area. Clang, the iron chain retracted into his body, and Togu immediately retreated. At the same time, because she was at the bottom level of the great necropolis, she had followed the Shadow Sect to learn for a period of time. With her own characteristics, Chun-Li could turn half of her body into shadows. Not only could she float and move quickly, but she could also perform short-distance shadow teleportation. In an instant, the chimera monster that had infinitely absorbed and expanded was drawn into the boulder formation in time. Currently, the number of members of the church that had been absorbed by this monster had reached 5, and the relevant attributes were also expressed on the monster's body. Crab claws, crab shell, rock layer armor, sharp mouthparts, extreme cold touch, spiritual field. Every ability could be used reasonably by the monster at the right time. When the remaining members of the church faced such a monster, they had completely fallen into a state of panic. The timing is just right. Seeing that the two important targets had been drawn into the boulder formation, Han Dong, who had already recovered from his pain, slapped the armrest hard, and used the reaction force to prop up his body. Whoosh! He spread his skeletal wings in the air, and rushed to the boulder formation at the fastest speed. After consuming all the mythical energy that he had collected since the beginning of the mist until now, dozens of giant spotted tentacles were derived from Han Dong's body. They constructed a kind of tentacle barrier that Han Dong could not achieve in reality, and completely sealed off the boulder formation. Even if the bishop wanted to escape, he would need at least 10 minutes to destroy such a huge tentacle barrier by borrowing the power of the void. Moreover, he did not have the time to destroy the barrier at all. After all, there was also an existence that the bishop was afraid of trapped inside at the same time. Phew! Because the tentacle ability is directly tied to the mythical energy set in the Mist movie, there are no side effects for me when all the mythical energy that does not belong to me is drained in an instant. This is quite comfortable. In reality, if the seed energy in the brain is drained in an instant, the whole person will fall into a state of unconsciousness for a long time. Han Dong stared at the boulder formation that was sealed off by the tentacles. Next, he only needed to wait for the special battle inside to determine the winner. No matter who won or lost, it would not affect the progress of the plan. Han Dong was very clear about one thing: the strength of the two was almost equal. The winner would definitely be seriously injured and overdrawn, and then the plan would proceed smoothly to the third stage. Han Dong had seen the layout of the formation in the Book of the Dead Souls, I copy, before, so he knew very well how to drive the formation. Get rid of the remaining members of the church. Next, I just need to wait. The bishop was trapped, and the remaining teachers had almost no resistance. They were dealt with in a short time, and even helped Han Dong to recover some mythical energy. Lord Messenger, what are you trying to do? Little Sister Nicole, who was slowly recovering from her serious injuries, also approached Han Dong. Staring at the boulder formation that was sealed off by the tentacles, she seemed to know what Han Dong wanted to do. That's right. Open the door. This bishop who has comprehended the void, and this colorless monster who has completely lost control, as the key. They should be able to open a stable and huge door. Then, Miss Nicole, you can safely return to the deep sea. What about you? I just want to see what's behind the door. Chapter 436. This thing. Why can't I kill it? He had been trapped in the formation for half an hour. The bishop used all his methods to deal with this chimera monster. But no matter how many limbs were cut off, chopped, or even destroyed, the monster's body would immediately grow new parts. The density of its internal limbs was terrifyingly high, and it even gained a certain degree of regeneration from the few teachers it absorbed. The bishop was basically fighting against thousands of failed products and a few elite teachers. The combat strength of these failed products was not weak. They just could not control themselves and were regarded as failed products. 60% of the void essence has been consumed. I need to finish this battle as soon as possible. The remaining energy should be enough for me to escape. Although the bishop was consumed by greed, but in a situation where his life was threatened, he could still recognize the reality of the situation. Once he escaped, he would have to abandon this church, find a remote human village or town, and start from scratch. Thinking of this, he struggled to condense a claw-like void arm, and suddenly grabbed at the monster that kept attacking. A large number of limbs were torn apart by the void claw, broken and eroded, until the monster's body was completely cut open. A colorless crystal stuck between the flesh was seen by the bishop. A messenger's crystal? How could it be in this monster's body? Although the bishop knew about the chimera experiment, he did not understand the reason for the monster's formation. He only treated it as a chaotic life form that could endlessly absorb other individuals, and completely sealed it in the second level of the church as a hidden weapon. If this is the case, I can directly advance. The bishop did not expect that the messenger's identity that he dreamed of was hidden by his side. Whoosh! A void arm reached out, stripped the colorless crystal from the monster's body, and grabbed it in front of him. Although it is a bit rough, but it is indeed a messenger's crystal. With my current level, I can definitely advance in one go. Thinking of his situation, the bishop was no longer picky. He immediately inserted the colorless crystal into the groove between his eyebrows. Buzz! A ripple spread out from the crystal. The monster's limbs, scattered all over the ground, immediately gathered towards the bishop's body. What's going on? Why is the crystal's interior chaotic? Why can't I give up these useless limbs? No. The bishop was only born as a human. His knowledge of the other side of the door was only at the stage of exploration and observation. He only knew that this kind of colorless crystal was a symbol of the identity of an emissary, but he did not know that there were good and bad crystals. At the same time, the integrity of the crystal had to be examined. The crystal in this monster's body had long been broken and messed up due to the unlimited absorption. Nicole had also immediately told Han Dong that the crystal had lost its value, but this bishop was completely unaware. In a short 5 minutes, the bishop had also turned into a monster made up of countless body parts. However, due to the strength of the bishop himself, he was able to maintain his independence of consciousness, so he still looked like a human. It feels pretty good. It doesn't matter what I become, as long as I can get permission to go to the other side of the door. As long as I can further comprehend the void, I will definitely be able to get rid of the excess parts of my body. Moreover, such a body is enough to clean up this group of invaders. Just as the bishop was trying to destroy the tentacles that surrounded Stonehenge, the formation engravings on the surface of the 5 boulders slowly began to shine with a dim gray light. Clang, clang, clang. Soon after, the stone plate on the ground also began to rotate slowly. How is that possible? This formation was created by the Pope himself. He only told the method to activate it to the bishops of the various branches, and it also requires the magical instruments on our bodies to activate it. The bishop could not understand the current situation of the formation being activated. No, I can't stay in there. The bishop was very clear about the serious consequences of activating this formation. All the lives in the formation would be sacrificed to connect to the other side of the door. He ran towards the edge with all his might, trying to escape. At that time, whoosh whoosh whoosh, between the rotating stone plate on the ground, thin black threads immediately spilled out and wrapped around the bishop's body. If the original bishop with the body of the void could still use the power of the void to destroy these threads, there would be a chance for him to escape. Now that the bishop had fused with the monster, his huge body and the addition of thousands of body parts provided more opportunities for the threads to bind him. Almost every body part was bound by a thread, and there was no way to break free. No, I shouldn't be in here. Despair gradually invaded the bishop's consciousness, and when the formation was fully activated, his entire consciousness collapsed. All of this was under Han Dong's precise control. The third stage, after the formation was successfully activated, Han Dong immediately retrieved the tentacles that sealed the stone array. He retrieved about 60% of the mythical energy. Currently, the bishop trapped in the formation was being disintegrated bit by bit. A purplish-red liquid overflowed the rotating stone plate. The arms and legs that were separated from the bishop's body slowly pieced together under the effect of the formation to form a strange door. The oil mixed with the void attribute completely filled the door, establishing a connecting passage between the two worlds. Slowly, with the bishop's complete death, a rather stable door was constructed. Such a huge and complete door of the void was very rare. It could even be said that it was the most stable door in the world of the fog. When Han Dong used the magic eye to spy, he could see some blurred stars inside the door. Bad Omen Church of the Void has been completed. Bad Omen points +6. Hidden Event Deep Sea Maiden's Request has been completed, increasing the favorability with the event character Nicole Littleclaw, increasing the overall reputation of the Deep Sea faction, accelerating the plot. Due to the completion of Level 6 Bad Omen, Han Dong had obtained the authority to unlock the Faceless Head. For a moment, an unprecedented refreshing feeling spread in his brain, and he no longer felt uncomfortable due to the various strange and indescribable scenes. With this, all of Han Dong's abilities had been activated and reached the most perfect state. Whoosh! He immediately stretched out a tentacle and picked up the white paper that fell in the middle of the hall. 8 of the original manuscript has been picked up. Nicole, the door has been opened. You can go back now. Who knew? Nicole actually knelt in front of Han Dong. Perhaps because of the success of the previous act, Nicole's relationship with Han Dong had changed. Or maybe because when she retrieved the Faceless Head, Nicole sensed that there was something different about Han Dong. Or maybe some of Nicole's dusty memories were stimulated by the current scene and Han Dong, and a part of it was unlocked. Lord Messenger, you didn't come from the opposite side of the door, right? Yes. Can I follow you? Chapter 437. Han Dong had risked his life to show off. What he wanted was for things to develop like this. Han Dong knew very well that a spy of the royal family like Nicole would not be summoned to this place so easily. From what he had seen so far, the Order only summoned low-level monsters. Nicole's curiosity was very strong, she wanted to know everything. If I'm not wrong, the reason why you were summoned to this world is because you sneaked out of the deep sea and got close to the surface, so you were affected by the summoning circle, right? After all, the Order did not see any life form of the same level as you. Otherwise, with all kinds of high-level deep ones like you descending, humanity would have been destroyed long ago. As if Han Dong was right, The octopus tentacles on Nicole's body squirmed and secreted a slimy mucus, and she stuck out her tongue slightly. I've learned all the knowledge about the deep sea. It's boring to stay in the sea all the time. I want to learn more interesting things, so I sneaked out. Lord Messenger, you seem to have come from a more interesting world, and your world is also connected to mine. I want to take a look. While speaking, Nicole's dark pupils shone with a look of extreme desire. She was the kind of girl who could not be kept at home and liked to wander around. I can take you with me, but not now. Why? Nicole was very clear that the messenger had the ability to store life forms. The red-clothed woman and the bald hellboy beside Han Dong were obviously anomalies of the messenger. Because there's not enough space. Han Dong also had a helpless expression. As expected, Lord Messenger is still in a newborn state. There's not enough space to store you. But it's okay. At this moment, Nicole gritted her teeth and suddenly cut off a pink tentacle from her body. The tentacle that was cut off from her body immediately dried up and turned into a dried octopus. This is my tentacle. As long as Lord Messenger has extra space, you can use this to summon me at any time. Received summoning token, Nicole Little Claw's tentacle. Can be used in any destiny realm to summon the Deep One Nicole Little Claw to help clear a destiny event. Note: a Nicole Little Claw will be counted as a participant once summoned, thus increasing the difficulty of the event. Alright. Han Dong hid his joyful expression and nodded with a smile. Nicole, you should return to the deep sea first. Father God seems to be a little angry. I have to go back for a while. When Nicole passed through the gate, a layer of ripples spread out, as if she was returning to the deep sea. Han Dong felt like he had reached the end of the story. He took a deep breath and prepared to wrap things up. Let's start. Chun-Li and Togu returned to the card first. After bidding farewell to the surviving townsfolk, Han Dong stepped into the door, alone. Different times of entry and different identities would lead to different destinations. The place Han Dong stepped into was a strange forest filled with misty starry hues. Warning! Warning! The area you have entered has triggered deep restraint. It is not within the scope of the mist incident. Please leave. Han Dong ignored the system's warning and walked in the forest. Some indescribable life forms spied on Han Dong in the misty light, and there was even some 7-colored fog that mysteriously floated around Han Dong. Once ordinary people absorbed such fog, their brains would immediately awaken and colorful tree-like limbs would grow, becoming permanent residents of the forest. It's about time. I'll choose here. Han Dong stood in front of the big pit in the forest and took off the bag of bad omens from his waist. After consuming all the mythical energy, he used the power of the tentacles to completely tear the seal of the bag and threw it into the big pit. For a moment, the big pit directly turned into a bottomless abyss. The misty colors in the forest were dispelled, and a rather terrifying existence descended. Since the first time Han Dong put his arm into the bag of bad omens, he had already discovered that there was a rather terrifying life form hidden in the depths of the bag. Such a terrifying life form could produce bad omens and affect reality. Bad omens descended. The misty life forms in the forest fled in all directions. Only Han Dong smiled and stood there facing the king of bad omens. That blotted out the sky. An indescribable pressure of a higher level. An irreversible level difference. A merciless and endless aura of bad omens. All of them foretold Han Dong's inevitable death. However, in the face of such an existence, Han Dong was not afraid at all. Instead, he said with a relaxed expression, using despair as the ending is more in line with the essence of the movie Mist. From the beginning of the incident until now, the 8 original manuscripts collected were all taken out and stacked in order. At the same time, a cover from the original manuscript that Han Dong had picked up in the study room rented by the author at the beginning of the movie was also taken out at the same time. This cover only had the 2 capital letters MI written on it. In fact, if one expanded their thinking a little, they would be able to think that the title was not finished. The real title should be Mist. After completing the cover, the terrifying omen painting of countless black arms dragged Han Dong into the abyss. Such a despairing ending was written at the end of the original manuscript. At the moment when he was shrouded in endless bad omens, the system notification sounded. True self-ending has been achieved in the blink of an eye. The darkness dissipated. Han Dong appeared in the villa rented at the beginning of the movie Mist. However, the current fog incident did not happen in the town, nor did it suffer from a storm. In the rented house, other than Han Dong, there was another visitor. Currently, this visitor had achieved his goal. He stood at the door, changed his shoes, and was about to leave. From the side, it was a slightly strange long-faced American man, holding a stack of original manuscripts in his hands. This man exuded an indescribable and terrifying aura. He was on a completely different level from Han Dong. "Mr. Nicholas, your story is very interesting. I am very satisfied." "You are?" When Han Dong finished his question, the other party had already disappeared. Phew! The dream is finally over. Such a solo event is really difficult. Currently, Han Dong was in the real world. Various abilities were not restricted and could be used freely. Everything that happened in the Mist incident. Chapter 1 Cold Spider Chapter 2 Soldier in the Mist Chapter 3 Hanged Woman Chapter 4 General Chapter 5 The Wandering Ghost Chapter 6 The Gatherer in the Church Chapter 7 The Terrifying Outcome of Failure Chapter 8 The Void Order Chapter 9 The Door and the Abyss. Everything that happened above was just a novel story written at the last minute. This was also why there was an idealistic phenomenon of omen affecting reality in the incident. It also explained why Han Dong's various abilities were weakened, sealed, or manifested in a different form. Everything was just a story. However, a pink octopus tentacle was held in Han Dong's hand as a reward for completing the story. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.